it's just
the ADHD is fully
today.
like in the driver's seat today.
Yeah. So we're gonna be this wagon train is gonna be going all over the place.
Are you saying that we're gonna ramble?
We're a rambling baby.
Rambling, gambling.
I think we're lost in the wilderness.
Yeah, and we barely started out. This is if we're in Oregon Trail, we're
dying.
we started out and we're already circling the wagons.
We're already starving.
Oh my god.
Anyway, okay. Welcome to Media Morsels, the podcast about creativity and the media that feeds it. I'm Jessica, your host and character enthusiast and aesthetic connoisseur.
I'm Jamie, plot guy and the summarizer.
And I'm Mitchie,
Scene chewer.
Vibe checker and scene chewer.
Vibe checker and scene chewer.
And I'm Claire. I'm a guest on today's episode and also a first-time viewer of the movie we're reviewing today.
Which is Silverado.
1985 or
Silverado.
16 years BS. Before Shrek, the year of our Lord.
Yeah. Silverado, 1985.
16 years BS.
Yes. And I guess June is kind of our Western month.
I was going to propose Buckaroo June.
Oh, yeah. I like that.
That's
Buckaroo
good.
June.
Yep.
It's also Pride Month, and we think it's kind of
What's more
appropriate.
gay than cowboys, I mean.
Yeah, exactly. We think it's appropriate because actually it turns out that the Wild West was very queer and also was very
multi-ethnic.
Yeah, it was very multi-ethnic. So lots of good representation going on, actually. Don't be fooled by all the 1950s Westerns that only show mostly just white people.
Mm-hmm. We enjoy some rhinestone cowboys in this here household.
Yeah, we're going to see Orville Peck later in the summer.
We are, and we're really excited about that. I have not yet listened to Beyonce's new album.
We need to get caught up on that.
We do.
I like the song I've heard.
So welcome to Buckaroo June.
Mm-hmm.
And
why are you a tiny buckaroo?
I don't know.
Buckaroo.
Fit in your pocket.
Oh my gosh.
Without further ado, let's go ahead and move into the appetizer round. I don't know, a lot of Westerns sound basically the same.
Just the big brassy score. Yeah.
This score, though, particularly makes me think that, like, some other Westerns took their cues from this specific movie.
Possibly.
Like,
Maybe.
I especially thought Spirit Stallion of the Cimarron, also a classic, if viewers out there or listeners have not seen that, took a lot of influence from this movie.
Yeah. Just speaking of current events, I guess. You know what's also kind of a Western-ish? Fallout.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
This is not sponsored.
This is the reason why we're all doing Westerns, is because of Fallout.
No, it's not. This was already planned, actually.
Yes.
It just happens to be that Fallout
I watched Fallout.
Jess's latest hyperfixation.
And it is my latest hyperfixation, and it does have a very, very strong Western coding.
Yeah.
Specifically for one particular character. So, I don't know. Again, not sponsored, but I freaking loved it.
Sponsored by autism.
Yeah, sponsored by my autism. If you want to watch something good, go watch Fallout on Amazon Prime, which I know Amazon is the devil, but whatever, it is really good.
No ethical consumption under capitalism, yada, yada.
Yeah. All the disclaimers. Also, it's kind of gory, so, just your mileage may vary.
Is Amazon Vault Tech?
Yes.
I think it's actually extremely...
It's almost 1-to-1.
I was just saying, it's just like, it's extremely ironic that Amazon sponsored making Fallout, because...
This critique of major corporate conglomerations.
Like, monopolistic entities. Anyway, let's get into what we're supposed to be talking about right now. I'm sorry, I have a headache. Again, this is one of my childhood movies that my family watched a lot. It's a little over 2 hours, so it was kind of a longer movie, but
For the time, and standard now.
Yeah. And not as long as some of the other epics in the mid-century.
Yeah.
But it's pretty good. It's pretty engaging.
It goes by fast. It doesn't feel like a long, drawn-out movie.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite Westerns. When I think about Westerns, this is one of, like, the top 5. I feel like in a lot of ways it was trying to emulate the sort of epic Westerns of the 1960s and 70s.
For sure.
But maybe came about a bit too late for that. I think I think the reason why Silverado is not better known is because it was just not what people were craving at the time.
Well, and this was before my time, but I think it was the 80s or the early 80s where the Western kind of started diving off.
Yeah.
Like, it was huge for a couple of decades. And
it was huge from, like, the 20s into the 70s.
People just kind of got oversaturated with it.
Yeah.
Sort of like
And-
Marvel movies now.
Yeah, with superheroes.
Like this one specifically, it has a lot of different thematics to it too. With usual westerns or whatever, you have the lone gunman, he has to do everything himself.
Yeah,
But,
rugged
like,
individualism.
And this does divert from that, which
Which we'll get into.
we'll dig further
get into
into
that.
the meat of it.
But for me, I watched this pretty young, and so it has basically always been with me. What about you guys?
Well, once again, Jess was the one that deflowered me on this one. I had not previously seen this movie, which is a little shocking, actually, because it seems like something that would have been right up my family's alley. One of my grandpa's favorite miniseries was Lonesome Dove, and, like,
I have never seen Lonesome Dove, by the way.
We have the box set.
Oh, okay. Actually, like, I would love to watch that sometime.
Yes, the Peanut Gallery is enthusiastically agreeing.
Yeah.
But yeah, this was my first exposure.
How many other people did I expose?
Well,
this
at
is my
least
first time seeing it.
you exposed all of us.
Yeah, none of us had seen it before, I don't think.
Man, 3 in 1.
Which, again, is kind of shocking, because it was a pretty big budget movie.
And there are definitely recognizable actors in it.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
A lot of big
all-star
names.
cast.
Yeah.
There's
Kevin Kline, Danny Glover, John Cleese is in there.
Kevin Costner,
like a
Scott
young,
Glenn.
Yeah, young Kevin Costner, Scott Glenn.
Do we say Jeff Goldblum
Super
already?
Yeah,
young.
no, we
yeah.
haven't said
And
Jeff Goldblum.
Friend of the show, Jeff Goldblum.
in his slut era.
We love
Yes.
For sure. His hair is immaculate in this.
Although I guess what era
his
isn't
hair.
his.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's true.
It's just different flavors of slut.
Yeah.
Hey, you're using that terminology now.
This was prior to his graduation from twink to daddy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like this was probably a little bit before Jurassic Park.
Yeah, well, Jurassic
Yeah.
Park
Yeah,
was...
no, it
it
was
was like
before.
10
It
years. Because
yeah.
Jurassic Park was, what, 94?
Yeah.
95?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this,
So
I
this
think,
was-
was also before Earth Girls Are Easy.
This is like early
This
Jeff
is
Goldblum.
early. Yeah.
Oh, it is. Oh man. Yeah. No.
yeah.
Baby Jeff Goldblum. Yeah. So back on track. This is my first exposure to this movie. Surprisingly, I would also say that it was kind of in my wheelhouse because I really enjoyed it. I took a couple of college courses or whatever, just as
Like
a,
on film studies.
yeah, for film studies and
Hell
specifically for westerns.
Really?
Yeah.
I did not
that.
know
You
that.
didn't?
Oh my god, I'm
That was
so
one of-
excited. You're like perfect for this.
So like that was one of my higher up like criticism classes was just watching like westerns and stuff like that, and that's actually how I got turned on to Once Upon a Time in the West, I think,
Yeah.
because that's kind of one of my favorite movies.
Yeah.
And
Did you ever watch oh fuck. We don't need no stinking badges. That one.
oh,
That one. What the fuck is it? It's like a classic.
I can't remember what it is.
I watched that in my like film studies class
Well,
from
viewers,
high school.
if you know where this quote is, you should definitely like.
We're going to look it up right after this.
Well,
Yeah,
I mean,
it's-
you should at least comment on it and like let us know in advance.
Engagement.
Engagement.
Okay, so with all that said,
What about
No.
Claire?
No, I chimed in.
yeah,
We don't need to do 5 minutes.
we don't need to labor it. Yeah.
Okay, fine.
With that, summarizer, you know what time it is. It's your time to shine. See, I think I'm just gonna put like a single like.
Okay, Very dynamic opening in this film. We open with Scott Glenn as kind of our framing character. He shoots a bunch of guys who are trying to kill him in his miserable little shed. The rest of the movie is just following him picking up strangers that he meets on the road and getting embroiled in a larger conflict that roots back to his past.
Despite him being kind of the framing device character, he is not, I don't think, really the protagonist, if there is a protagonist to this movie.
Yeah, and we'll get more into that
or
as well.
I guess main character. There's like 4 protagonists.
Yes.
I feel like if you picked a main character, it would either be Peyton.
Al is a close second, just because he doesn't get as much screen time.
Oh, I know somebody who's definitely named after this movie.
Really?
Yeah, I know a Peyton.
That's not a common name.
Yeah, there you go. Your spoiler-free
Let's get
teaser.
down to the main vittles.
Yeah, let's get down on the main vittles. Come sit around the campfire, folks. We're about to break
tin of beans.
break into the beans, hardtack, and coffee.
Rootin', tootin', cowboy bootin'.
Oh my god.
Coming in hot over the wire.
I feel like we're a little unhinged tonight.
Yeah.
It's okay. We don't have to get through the whole thing. We can. I'm okay with like doing like half, and then
Well, that actually...
we'll see where we go.
I think that might be smart anyway, because this movie sort of neatly splits into half. Because the first half is just sort of like random slice of life in the Wild West, and then an hour in, the actual plot kicks in.
The thing is, like, the first half we don't have to spend a lot of time on.
We'll figure it out.
Okay, anyway. So, Silverado begins, as Jamie was describing, with Scott Glenn being this, I guess, kind of rugged wilderness guy.
Yeah, it's not really explained why he is where he is.
No, never explained. That's okay. It's really not important.
It is explained. He's traveling on his way to get his brother to go to his sister's house.
But where is this shed? Who does it belong to? Does he live there?
He's been living there a while. No, he's been there a while. He was living there. He was planning on setting off.
My interpretation was that he was just holding up there for the night. I don't think he had been living there.
It's not clear.
Either way, his name is Emmett. But
we don't learn that until like 40 minutes into the movie.
No, that's not true.
I feel like
it's close to true.
I feel like we need to kind of describe this opening scene though, because it's actually
I was getting there. I wasn't there.
It's a very good shoot 'em up opening.
Yeah, it's very dynamic in media ras.
It's very quiet whenever it starts up. You just get like little glimpses of
sleeping in his little shack.
Yeah, he has the RPG protagonist introduction where you don't even see his face. It's just his back facing camera, asleep.
And then
some jackhole just busts down the door and starts trying to shoot him.
Yeah, it's actually like 3 people or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They just start shooting him. We don't know why. It will be
And
explained.
we don't learn why until like minute 70, approximately.
Yeah, we don't, but that's not important because that's part of the mystery. He's like, who are these people and why are they shooting at me? So he shoots a whole bunch of the guys who are trying to kill him. He kills... I think he kills 2. No, he kills 3 of them. Mm-hmm. 2 of the horses run away, and then one of them remains. It's like this cute little paint horse, and it's got this interesting brand on it that he's never seen before. And he's like, I gotta figure this out because some people are trying to kill me for no reason. So he was planning on packing up and going to see his sister anyway.
I want to just kind of rewind just slightly because one of those kills was actually really, really cool. Like whenever he pulled off the rifle from up above the holster or whatever, and he like spun it around a couple of times and cocked it and then blasted the guy out of the roof. That was cool.
Yes.
Yeah, there are some... I mean, honestly,
there's a lot of really good
work,
gunplay, yeah.
Yes.
And also the horse stunts were just insane because... And I think that's why my mom and my aunt really liked this movie.
Big horse family, yeah.
Big horse family, love horse stunts. Anyway, and a lot of the actors did their own horse stunts, which is really impressive.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of those stunts are dangerous. So, anyway. So here Emmett is. He's riding his horse across the wilderness. He's got this other paint horse in tow. And he gets
Across,
to
like,
this...
the desert wilderness.
Yeah,
Yes.
It's a desert.
He gets to a desert. Before that, he's
he starts out in like the
foothills.
snowy mountains, because this is, we found out at the end of the movie, filmed in New Mexico. So you got that mix of snowy mountain peaks and desert. And
Yeah. So he's trekking across this duny desert. Out there, just in the middle of the sand, is just a guy.
in his underwear.
Pink long johns.
Well, I think
laying out in the
I think they were
in the
originally
sand.
red. They're just faded and covered in dust now. He's very dry looking.
Yeah, he is very dry.
Technically, I think they're salmon colors.
Okay.
let's
Actually.
And you know what salmon means symbolically? Let's reflect
Yeah.
on
Color
the
symbolism.
color symbolism in this movie.
All right, y'all. I'm a dip.
Anyway, in his salmon long johns, Emmett stops. He gives him some water. It's Kevin Kline, who, by the way, looking fucking fine in this movie.
Yeah,
even when he
pulls
looking
it
crusty.
together with the beard in this movie for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah, I've only seen him in like later roles and just
does not compare.
yeah.
He's
Yeah.
a hottie in this. Anyway, at least to us. So Emmett rescues him. They kind of start traveling together as Emmett is sort of nursing this guy back to health. I don't know that they actually say his name for a while either.
I think they learn it in town.
They learn it in town, but we're not there yet. But basically, Kevin Kline's character tells Emmett that, hey, I was just kind of riding along, minding my business. 3 guys come along, we're all riding in the same direction, we ride together, and they must have admired my
getup.
everything,
Yeah.
essentially. And so they robbed me blind and left me for dead. He was like, I mean...
At least they
At
didn't
least they
kill
left
him
me
outright.
alive.
I
Yeah.
was like, that was pretty considerate of them.
Yeah.
but
And as part of this side quest, he has lost 3 key items.
His hat, his horse,
and his what was it?
pearl
handle.
ivory handled
Colt.
sidearms. But
That guy is pretty.
And he will spend the rest of the movie reassembling his kit.
yes. So eventually they roll up into town. Kevin Kline is still literally just in his underwear because Emmett does not have extra clothes to give this guy.
Apparently.
Yeah.
Which begs the question how often he washes
It's
what
the
he's
Wild
wearing.
West.
I'm
He
sure
doesn't.
he doesn't.
Oh.
He probably wades into a river and just lets that kind of like halfway
Yeah.
wash him, and that's it.
The river turns brown momentarily.
I guess we're not supposed to think about that.
No.
This is not a movie suited for smell-o-vision.
Emmett gives him a little bit of money to go get some clothes. But while Kevin Kline's character is kind of trotting towards the little general store or whatever,
Potentially
he
with the
spies
trots.
his horse and his saddle. And it's one of those bastards that left him for dead in the desert. And so he runs into...
Well, first off, he reaches down for his hip, realizes, oh no,
yeah,
I
he
have
just
a gun.
slaps his hip and he's like, oh shit.
Reflexively.
Yeah.
He's like, yep, I'm
Which
still in
tells
my
you a lot
underwear.
about this character,
Yeah.
that he reflexively reaches for his pistol.
Yep. Which, good character development there. Nice little...
Very efficient.
Yeah. He runs into the nearest gun store, or I think it might just be
It's still the
general
general
store.
store.
And
yeah.
he's, looking at the guns. He
And
picks out this-
haggling.
He picks out this really nice one, and the shopkeeper is like, no, that's $20. You've got like $1. So he hands him this really shitty
That's
pistol
actively
that's like
falling
apart. And it's like, that's fine, it'll do.
Not Emmett, Peyton.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Peyton, Kevin Kline's character, grabs a box of bullets, runs out into the street. The other
is
guy
loading the
loading
gun
the gun.
as he's walking into the street.
The guy who has his horse spies him, and he starts shooting at him, but he's a bad shot because he's a bad guy.
Well, he's on the horse too, also trying to shoot him and pull up.
Yeah, there's a lot happening.
Yeah, but
Maybe-
Peyton is very calmly loading his weapon, and when it's finally loaded, he raises it and just smoothly dispatches this guy. He's just like, bam!
Just one shot's in.
One shot.
Yeah.
I mean, there was almost a crotch shot though that happened.
Oh, that was funny, yeah.
Yeah, he got shot through the crotch of his long underwear.
But it did not faze him, which again should tell you something about the kind of guy he is. He's just like, excuse you. Of course, the law comes to check out why this guy shot a man dead on the street. He explains, this man stole my horse, and they're like, well, how do we know that he stole your horse? And he's like, well, check under the saddle. My name is scratched into the bottom of the saddle. And they're like, well, what's your name? And another voice says, Payton.
And that's when we actually learn his name.
Yes, that's when we actually learn his name. And this guy kind of ambles up from the crowd. He's
very wide
kind of
man.
Very
broad.
Yeah. Payton, it's interesting, his
he clearly
reception
knows him.
of this guy. He knows the guy, but you can tell he's not exactly happy to see him. But the guy vouches for him. They, pull the saddle off. Indeed, there is Payton's name scratched into the saddle. And so they're like, well, yeah, I guess he was a horse thief. So yeah, it was within your rights to shoot him dead.
Frontier justice.
They let him go, and Payton's friend sort of walks with him and is like, hey, I'll help you out. I'll get you some clothes, blah, blah, blah. Oh, while I'm at it, this guy's name is Cobb. I can't remember his first name, but his last name is Cobb.
He goes by Cobb, yeah.
While I'm at it, Payton, I've got you rode with us for a long time.
And I got this pretty sweet gig
I got this
that
pretty
you might
sweet
like.
deal if you want to, join up with me again. And Payton is clearly not interested in whatever this is.
Or he's skeptical, to
Yeah,
say the
at very
least.
least, yeah.
Yeah.
Whether this is on the right side of the law or not. Because
Yeah.
he seems to know what sort of man Cobb
is. Basically, it becomes clear over time that Payton used to ride with a bad crowd. And he just decided to get out of it. Because, as you later find out, it has something to do with a dog. But every time Payton runs into people that he used to know from this posse, I guess, this group, they all ask him, where's the dog? And so you're like, what's that about? For a while.
And this is also where we meet Cobb's, weirdly pretty second-in-command guy, who is, sort of the B-tier villain. Tyree, that's...
Yeah.
Is that the guy with the eye
Tyree
patch?
with the
No.
blue eyes.
He's the pretty boy.
His eyes are
yeah.
weirdly piercing. And
They're, scary.
Is this the
Yeah.
one that I thought was a Walmart brand version of what's his name from?
Oh, Sebastian Stan.
Yeah.
Sebastian
okay,
Stan.
there cannot be a comparison made between
That's
these
why he's
two.
the Walmart brand.
Yeah, he's the great value Sebastian.
Maybe
Yeah,
the Dollar
yeah.
General.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Anyway, he does have very piercing eyes. So anyway, Cobb is like, hey, I bought you some clothes. This might interest you. Takes him over to where Tyree is being released from prison. And then he sort of again, makes his pitch. Come with us. We have a job for you. And Payton's like, yeah, pass. Thanks, bud.
It's clear there's no love lost there.
Yeah. So Payton finds Emmett. He gets dressed, finally, so he's not, just walking around in his literal underwear. He asks Emmett what his plans are from here, and Emmett says, well, I'm supposed to meet somebody in this town called Tully or something like that, and then I'm riding on to Silverado.
Yeah,
He's very laconic.
very businesslike.
And,
No, I meant the town's name was...
Oh, Turley.
Turley.
Yeah, you're right, Turley. So they're going to head to Turley. Payton's like, well, is there a good saloon there? And, Emmett's like, I expect so.
Women?
Yeah.
And I mean, there was also
I think really Payton just wanted an excuse to keep going with his friend Emmett.
Yeah.
He did.
Well, because, this movie is oddly focused on the power of friendship.
Yes, which is actually one of the things that I think resonates so much with me watching it.
Well,
is that it's a movie that's about relationships and friendship.
Well, and it's nice, because, a lot of Westerns are
Male friendship.
specifically, close male friendship. That's kind of rare to see that expressed in a healthy way in any movie.
Yeah.
Is this Western My Little Pony?
In this essay, I will. But yeah, that might have been part of what hurt it in the box office, too, because, sort of the
Especially
standard...
in the 80s.
Yeah, but the standard model of the Western is, one man and his wits against whoever.
Your
it's
Clint
either
Eastwoods,
one man and his wits, and his gun, tame the West,
Yep.
or it's 7 fucking bastards team up to be a problem for other bastards.
See,
Yes.
there's other bastards getting together in this film, but you actually know who
But
they
they're not
are.
bastards.
Well,
That's the
yeah,
thing. They're
yeah,
not
yeah, yeah.
bastards. They're like cool
You know who they
guys.
are. You actually have interactions between different members of this group.
And you can see why they like each other.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, and again, I feel like particularly in 1985, that particular brand of machismo really,
it was the
I'm
Reagan
a lone
era.
rugged
Yeah.
gun. You know,
It was literally
really
the Reagan era.
Yes.
The guy who was in Westerns in that model of the lone gunman.
Yeah, and it had kind of like, I think it was being really pushed to
We
its,
had
like,
President
maximum.
Cowboy.
Yeah, the only bad cowboy.
wasn't
Or maybe the worst cowboy.
Yeah.
I was like, that
President
is
Reagan.
not true.
Yeah, there's bad cowboys out there.
That is not true.
wasn't there also like a caravan heading that way too?
Yeah, so I think
Well, we're not there yet.
They pick them
we
up in
meet them.
Turley.
Yeah, we meet them in Turley.
I thought
No,
that,
Turley.
okay.
So,
Again, this first half of the movie is just like a dot-to-dot, like, slice of life tour of the American
West.
Southwest.
So, Emmett and Peyton head to Turley, and when they get into Turley, they are immediately set upon by this man who's like, "You boys, you're late, it's a bad start, blah, blah, blah." He's calling them names that aren't their names, and they're like, "Well, sir, yeah, like, we're not who you're..."
Who you
Looking
hired.
for.
Yeah.
But he's got a wagon train, and they're trying to get to Silverado.
Because they're settlers. They're farmers who bought plots of land out there.
Yeah, and they think that Emmett and Peyton are there to be their guides, but they're not. Their guides shortly after kind of roll in, and Peyton and Emmett watch as the head of the caravan, of the wagon train, talks to them, and they ask him about half their money up front. And so he leads them to this money chest where they have literally all of their money, by the way. All of it. All
And
of
a
it in
Bible.
one fucking place.
And
a
they
Bible,
just
yeah.
open it right out in the open on the street.
And they pay them half, and notably, Emmett and Peyton both see this. The guides don't count their half of the money. They're like, "We trust you, friend," but like in the West, you usually do want to make sure that
if you're
you've been paid.
if you're doing business on the up and up, then you would count your money. Like,
Yeah,
that's
just to
what-
make
that's
sure
just what you do.
everything's fair. So anyway,
If people aren't counting your money, you should be on your guard.
Oh, they were
Because they're
counting.
going to be after the rest
because
of
they're
it.
I
going
mean,
to,
yeah,
they don't
they
care
were
'cause they'll
counting
get
their
the
money.
rest. Yeah.
They were counting the other money.
Yeah. The wagon train heads out. Emmett and Peyton head into a saloon. Mm-hmm. And when they're in there, we meet
Malachi.
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 The most badass name.
Yes. Malachi is a black man, Danny Glover. He has just rolled into town, and he goes up to the bar and he says, "I haven't had a drink of whiskey or slept in a bed for 10 days. You know, he's here to drink whiskey and sleep in a bed." But, of course, racism
Because it's like
happens.
1890 fuck right now.
Yeah, and, you know, things start to get out of hand pretty quickly. The barkeep is like, "We don't serve, you know, your kind here," after Mal has already paid for his whiskey. And then a bunch of the other patrons start kind of like coming to gang up on him. And as it turns out, he's a very accomplished fighter, and he fucks everybody up.
Well, you also had Peyton and
Or Peyton and Emmett, they're watching this situation. Emmett is kind of like, Peyton's like, "That doesn't look fair," because there's like 3 people ganging up on Malachi. And Emmett's just like, "For who, though?" Because Emmett's like sizing up Mal.
They definitely characterize Emmett early on as like a very skilled and experienced
Like-
reader of people also.
Yeah.
Insightful.
And
Yeah.
so you can tell he's already like kind of clocked Malachi as being,
Very capable.
yeah.
and it turns out Danny Glover is not too old for this shit.
Nope, not in this movie.
He's like one of the most capable throughout the whole movie.
Yeah, I would argue he comes in clutch most of the time. Like,
Yes.
'cause-
Yeah, he saves all their bacon at least twice.
Multiple times.
Yeah.
He has a running tally of big damn heroes moments.
Yeah,
Yes.
he does. He defends himself, but the sheriff, who is John Cleese in this town, rolls up and he's like, "What is going on?"
A very young John Cleese too, like black hair even. It was kind of weird.
He's not completely gray. The saloon keeper is like, "That man, blah, 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 blah." And like John Cleese is like, "Look, dipshit, I know your game, whatever. I'm sure you caused the trouble." Especially since Emmett and Peyton chime in being like, yeah, Mal, that guy, he didn't start it.
He didn't start the trouble. They
Yeah.
said the other guys.
John Cleese kind of does this thing. You know, Sheriff John Cleese is like, well, you don't have to stick around and pay for any of the damage because I know this asshole, but I need you to leave my township literally right now.
Because
which
you're
also
trouble.
sucks. Yeah, which also sucks. You know, it could be, if we were being really generous, it could be that he's just like, I can't guarantee your safety in this town.
But that's really not how it comes across.
Not how it comes across. It's much more likely that he's like, while he might not be the most racist asshole around,
He's still racist.
He's still racist, and he's like, you need to get the fuck out.
Mm-hmm.
Mal is like, that's not right, but it is what it is. So, you know, he kind of nods at Emmett and Peyton, and he heads out. But before he heads out, he's like heading out the door, about to go past the sheriff, when he pauses, turns around, and, you know, sort of defiantly takes his already poured shot of whiskey.
And he's like, I already
Knocks
paid
it
for
back.
this.
Mm-hmm. No, he doesn't say that.
Oh.
Yeah, he doesn't say anything.
But it's heavily implied
Yeah.
that that's
Yeah.
why he's doing it.
But he knocks it back, savors it, and then he leaves.
Mm-hmm.
Then the sheriff comes to sit down with Emmett and Peyton. He's like, basically, my job here is to keep the peace, and I like to do that by checking in on all the strangers who come to town. So,
And you
who
fuckers
are
seem
you,
like trouble.
and what the fuck you doing in
Yeah.
here? Emmett explains, well, I'm waiting to meet a guy I'm going to be, you know, heading to California with, but I haven't been able to find him. And the sheriff's like, well, can you describe him? And so Emmett describes him, and the sheriff is like, I think I know where he is. And by the way, they passed a gallows as they were heading into town.
The first thing the sheriff asked them, he's
Oh,
like,
are you here for the
Yeah,
hanging?
are you two here for the hanging tomorrow?
Yeah.
And they're like, no.
And where should the sheriff lead them but the jail?
The Hooskow!
Yeah, and he leads them into the cell, and who should be in there but a very young baby and very ADHD hyper Kevin Costner.
He is so baby and very athletic.
Yeah, he is.
He is my favorite character in this entire film.
I think this might have been my favorite role of his that I've seen him in.
But we cannot speak to that until you see Dances with Wolves.
Yeah, so far.
But, like, it's
one of the most iconic
it's
Westerns.
it's a very atypical role for Kevin Costner, because he's just like very
he's not stoic.
yeah,
like
no,
he is
not
in
at
nearly
all.
every
He's
other
super
thing.
energetic. He acts like a teenage boy, which might be what he's playing. It's a little unclear how old Jake is supposed to be.
I think
I
he's
would
in
say
his
young
young
20s.
20s.
yeah, but he's like treating the bars of his cell as monkey bars. He is never sitting still
No.
in this movie. He is always on the move.
Yeah, basically, he's in the clink because at first he's like, well, I kissed a girl. That's all I did. But then her guy came after him, and then he was beating up the other guy. But then the guy's friend pulled a
on
gun,
him.
and he killed him. Jake, Kevin Costner's character, killed him.
From State Farm.
Jake is monkeying around on the monkey bars. He's like, hey, Emmett, are you gonna, like, spring me? Or you gotta get me out of here, Emmett. And Emmett is like, there's nothing I can do for you, brother. Come dawn,
You'll hang it on.
you'll swing or whatever. And
John Cleese corrects him with, like, the hanging's at 10.
And he's like, oh, I guess I just always think these things happen at dawn. And he turns around
Hint.
and Peyton and him head out of the jail. Peyton's like, I mean, that's tough. You know, there's nothing we can do to help. And it's like, yeah, well, you know, that's my brother, and now I gotta spring him out of jail. He's like, I gotta jailbreak him. The whole time he was bluffing. Yep, I gotta figure out how to spring him. And Peyton's like, you know, I'm trying to stay on the right side of the law.
He's like, I don't think I can get mixed up in all that.
I can't get mixed up in that, friend. And Emmett's like, yeah, no hard feelings. All right, see you
around.
later.
Yeah.
So Peyton goes, again, he loves a saloon. He loves a good old stinky saloon. So he heads into the saloon in Turley. Pretty immediately, he spies a very familiar hat. It is his hat.
Side quest hat.
So he, like, marches up to this guy. And he's like, you're wearing my hat,
His
friend.
black hat with the silver band.
Yeah.
The black hats are the good guys in this one.
Yeah.
Yep.
He basically is like, I'm going to give you a chance, friend, to give me that hat back. And the guy reaches down, you know, has his hand on his hip, and Peyton's like, that better not be my, ivory
Colt.
that your fingers are tickling or whatever. And it's not. But anyway, the guy does draw, and Peyton kills him right there in the middle of the saloon. So, of course, he ends up in the clink right next to Jake. And
Wait, is it not his pistol?
No, it's not. He gets
His pistol
that back
comes
later.
back later, yeah.
Oh, okay.
And there was only one cell.
And they were cellmates.
Uh-huh.
So Jake is like, oh yeah, Emmett's coming to get us. I know, whatever. He'll be here. I gotta be ready. And Peyton is like, are you sure? Are you sure he's gonna break you out? I don't know about that. And,
Well, and Peyton's like, and even if he is, I'm not going with you. I'm trying to stay straight. Breaking out of jail's not going to be good for me.
no, he never says that.
Well, he says something to that effect because he's like, I'm just gonna. It was self-defense. He
He doesn't say he's not going to go with him, but he does seem to be like trying
He's
to convince
skeptical.
himself
but
that it's going to be okay.
where I was going with that was, he was like, it was self-defense. I'm sure the sheriff will see it that way. And Jake was like,
Well, that's what
that's
happened to me.
what happened to me, man.
like Peyton's trying to convince himself it's going to be okay, but then Jake chimes in and is like, hey, just like with my case.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think that he's trying to convince himself. I think he's just sort of like, but it was self-defense. I think he knows he's going to be fucking hung in the morning right after Jake. But he's also skeptical that Emmett is going to be able to pull this off. But then Jake starts pulling out some really interesting skills. He's like picking the lock, and he's talking about Blind Pete used to do this just by sound or whatever. And it's like, kind of, what was he
using
Jake
his
into
belt
before?
loop.
Yeah, he was
Yeah.
using his belt buckle to pick the cell lock.
And he has been basically waiting until this point, because I think he was waiting for Emmett to kind of meet him halfway, more or less. Mm-hmm. But now that he knows Emmett is there and that, Emmett's working the problem, he's like, okay, I can start working this from my end. So anyway, he picks the lock.
You cut to like the outside
The gallows, yeah.
Not the gallows, but like the front
the
police
front
office.
But there's a couple other things happening.
Yeah, first off, you cut to, Emmett is sitting on the gallows and he's whittling something. And then the sheriff and some other guy, nameless guy,
His
are
deputy.
sitting playing chess, just waiting for 10 a.m. to roll around. Some kid comes and bangs on the door and he's like, Sheriff, come look! And the gallows are on fire, which is a diversion. While the sheriff goes to check that out, the other guy, his deputy, hears some movement in the jail cell. So he goes to check it out, and Jake is nowhere to be seen, but Peyton's just kind of like standing there, and he's like, where'd it go? And
He
Peyton's
stands up like an A.
Yeah, A posing.
I don't know. Yeah.
He's like, I just woke up, and he was gone.
And he's like, come here. Put your hands through the bars. And like, Peyton seems to be having trouble putting his hands through the bars. And so he's about to cuff them. And then there's like, suddenly this extra foot appears beneath Peyton. And the guard is like, what the fuck? And then Peyton's actual hand comes and pops out and punches the deputy and knocks him out. And turns out that they were doing that whole two people in a trench coat trick. And
Classic.
Jake was like behind him with his arms through the armholes. And yeah.
Doing the Who's Line bit.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So they get the keys, they break themselves out, they get all their stuff, they go out on the street. Peyton is like, we need to be quiet, but fucking
Jake has dual-wielding pistols.
Yeah, he is
and starts just, like, unloading.
Well, no, he doesn't unload unprompted. There's a guy who comes out and is going to shoot them.
there's some townsperson has noticed that the criminals have broken out of the cell, so they start, like, shooting at him, and he, flips out his little pistols and he's like, bow, 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 bow. But I don't think he's trying to kill him. He's just trying to get him to go back inside.
He very clearly is shooting the steps right below him to herd him back into his house.
And then Peyton just looks at him.
Just like,
Peyton.
Peyton,
Not Mom. Peyton.
Peyton is just like,
yeah. And Jake's like, oh yeah, right.
quiet, yeah.
Well, anyway, I think Emmett, what's he do? He like releases.
He went to get the horses.
Yeah, he gets the horses. They charge through town. They get on their horses.
Guns
and
blazing.
They ride like hell out. And the posse is after them because the sheriff is, rounds up his posse pretty quick. And they're hot on their tails. And they're riding through the scrub. And it looks bad
Some
for
good
our
horse
buddies.
work here.
Yeah, really
really good riding. And it looks bad for our heroes. And they're catching up. But then, out of nowhere, bam! Bam, 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 bam! So there's, more gunshots, and up on this, rocky outcrop is Mal! And he is basically, holding off the posse. Finally, Sheriff John Cleese is like,
The setup for this is really good because, he pulls to a stop when the random fire starts coming in, and his deputy is like, well, that guy keeps missing. And John Cleese is like, no, I think he's made every shot.
No, you idiot. He's hit everything he's aimed for.
Because he was trying to, startle the horses, or,
And he's not trying to kill the sheriff and the posse. He's just trying to get the message across.
To cause interference. And then when Sheriff John Cleese tries to ride forward a little bit more, he shoots his hat off.
Yeah.
Right off his head.
And then he's just like...
And that's when he's
and
beat.
His jurisdiction should end at the flat rock that the men are making for, but he's like, nope.
Today
it ends here.
Today it ends
I'm
here.
not riding a step further.
I'm good.
So they turn around. Emmett, Peyton, and Jake ride up to meet Mal, and so now sort of our core gang is together, and they're all riding towards Silverado.
Look at these 4 fools.
Four buddies.
I love them.
Yeah, and we have our
and you learn
our cluster of Western tropes. It's the gambler, the trick rider, the sharpshooter, and then whatever Emmett is.
The hero.
The rugged
Rugged
individual.
Yeah.
Who now has a bunch of friends.
I guess a gunslinger.
Yeah.
Hand.
So, anyway, we also learn what Mal is doing here. So Mal had previously been up working in the slaughterhouses in Chicago, but he'd gotten a letter from his mother, and she had asked him to come help them on the farm because they were having some trouble. And so he's like, I'm finally coming home. My dad owns a piece down near Silverado, so that's where I'm heading.
And there's also some really interesting, I don't know, I thought it was funny how Drake asked Mal, he was like, oh, so Chicago, was that really neat? And then Mal, just flatly, he was like,
nope.
Nah.
No.
And he doesn't expand on that, but you can imply some stuff.
Yeah, you can infer that...
It wasn't so great.
It wasn't so great, and probably particularly because he was black.
Yeah.
Because, the North may have offered more freedom. Black people weren't treated well, and they weren't paid well. Yeah, so...
For a while.
Yeah, so anyway, they're on their way to Silverado, and who should they run into but the wagon train? And this kind of begins this, side plot that I don't think actually ever needed to be in here. This is, my one real criticism of the movie, is that there just seemed to be this really weird shoehorned subplot in there of there's this pretty, quiet little...
Settler lady.
Settler lady.
I mean, I think every part of the movie did good to set up something. This one was setting up what good shots they all were.
Well, no.
Well, they didn't have to have this
together.
But specifically
girl.
the gal. She doesn't really add much.
Yeah, so
her presence doesn't add much to the movie.
They didn't have to be motivated by her presence in the wagon train to help the settlers.
True.
And she doesn't contribute almost anything to the rest of the plot.
Well, that's where it's interesting, because at the end of the movie, they set it up to where all of them kind of have something. And the girl was kind of sort of implied to be Emmett would come back to her.
Maybe. But it's... I don't know. It felt kind of shoehorned in, and they didn't really have any chemistry, so
See, with
I
that
didn't really
interaction, I actually got Emmett and Peyton mixed up, because I thought it was Peyton.
Peyton was pursuing her at first.
Yeah.
But Emmett was also interested.
That's also kind of something that's
But what was the point?
Well, I think it does good to characterize them, because it's not something you see a lot in westerns where one guy initially goes for her, and then he's graciously backs off when he realizes weirdly, that they're not a good fit.
I would counter that, because I've seen that happen actually in several westerns where they'll be like, we're both interested in her, but you have dibs, or I relinquished dibs on this woman. You can go after her now. I've seen that in at least 2 I can think of off the top of my head. So I'm like, maybe they were trying to put that trope in there because it is a common trope. Sometimes they fight over women, but sometimes it's a weird...
Bros before hoes thing.
Yeah. And as a character, she
just kind of isn't.
Yeah, she's like one.
I liked her.
Okay.
You guys are shitting on her. I was like, I thought she
I don't
had
think she's a bad
a
person.
really good
I just think she
line,
was superfluous.
like when Peyton went to visit her.
Well, it's a good single line, but for me, that does not a character make.
yeah, I'm like, I
No.
respect that her whole deal is that she wants someone. She's like, I'm beautiful and I know it. People keep telling me that. But the thing that I want is to work hard and make something grow.
well,
and
she,
most
she
men
was like,
are
beauty. She was like, beauty doesn't last. So what will be left after my beauty's gone? And I was
Yeah.
like, that's a really good way to look at it.
you
actually.
Yeah, but it's also a sentiment that, like, I don't know. I'm like,
She could have been
her
there and said
thesis-
that without it having the weird, ambiguous romantic subplot that doesn't go anywhere.
Yeah.
That's the critique.
You guys
Her-
are also like speeding ahead a little bit.
well,
too.
I know, but
Yeah,
we're on the
but
subject.
We're on
Yeah.
the subject of her.
Yeah.
So, her thesis like, her whole core is that she's like, I want to make something grow, and that takes hard fucking work. And I want a man who will do that work, and it is hard living, and I'm not going to make any bones about that. And I was like, I like that. So it's not that I dislike her character as a person,
But
I
as a plot
dislike-
element, it just kind of sticks out as not fitting in with the rest of the movie.
that was
Yeah.
like sort of this
I
weird,
disagree, but
nothing
That's
ever
fine.
goes
I can see
anywhere.
Yeah.
But first, we have to kill her husband.
Yes,
Yeah.
you gotta get him
First,
out of
we
the
gotta
way.
get that dead weight out of the way.
Yeah, so this is what this
It's
is,
fine, he's a little bitch baby.
Yeah, so basically they run across this wagon train. The wagon train stalled out because guess what? The two shady guys stole their money and ran, and now they're stranded and they don't know where they're going. And
Well,
I
no,
think
they do know where they're going, because those guys weren't
they
supposed
don't
to
know
act...
how to get there. They don't know how to get there.
No, those guys weren't their guides, they were supposed to be their armed escort.
Okay, sorry, excuse me.
But they can't move on without their money.
Several
Yeah.
things are happening. They do not know exactly how to get where they're going.
Mm-hmm.
They don't know exactly how to get where they're going, but they also don't have any money anyway, so they can't.
They
I guess
can't move on unless they
can't
get
move
back.
on. They can't. I think they can claim their land, but they won't have anything to use to build. So they're like, we're kind of stuck here until we can figure out what's
They
going
were like,
on.
we all pitched in for those guides.
Mm-hmm.
This is where I think maybe in part the woman was meant to motivate Peyton and Emmett to help. I think they would have helped anyway.
Yeah, that's the thing, because
I don't think
they've been
they needed
demonstrated
the
to be
extra
pretty stand-up
incentive.
guys already.
Yeah.
But her husband, because she has a husband at this point, they offer to help. And Emmett is like, hey, if I had a wife that pretty, I would not want to leave her here.
But her husband's like, well, I want to follow these guys because I don't trust them.
I don't
and,
trust them.
Yeah.
Which, I don't blame him
fair
actually
enough,
for that.
but like,
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't
but
know.
the way he's
He-
presented is like
He's
as-
framed as a little bitch baby, and
as like
Yeah,
a,
and
that's what
a
he is.
douchey
And as she's
sorta
reaching
guy.
for him as he's riding away, he just kind of like ignores her and
He
and
brushes
shakes
her
her
off.
Yeah. Jake stays with the wagon train
Yes.
as protection, also as a guide. He's like, I know how to get where you're going, so like let's
Let's get a
go.
move on.
Emmett, Peyton, Mal, and
Bitch baby.
Random
Bitch baby.
husband.
That's
Was he ever named?
He
Red
might have been,
shirt.
but I don't care.
they go off in pursuit of these two thieves, and as it turns out, they are camped out in this sort of
Ravine.
canyon.
And it's not just two of them. They're
And
part
it's
of
a
a big
whole
old band.
Yeah, they're part of a whole
Gang of
operation.
outlaws hiding
Yeah.
in the canyon.
And Emmett is like, I've got an idea. So Emmett rides in alone really fast with Peyton sort of slung over the horse behind him. And he's like, oh my God. He like charges in basically trying to like confuse people with his urgency. And he's like, there's a, I'm sorry I had to come in here, but I heard about this place from so-and-so and so-and-so and so-and-so. Like,
You know them.
And there's a big posse coming down. We just robbed a bank, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah,
And-
we're totally also outlaws on the run too. Haha. Yeah.
And the head honcho was not quite buying it, but the two guys who were in Turley say, well, yeah, I mean, we don't know about bank money, but we did see those two guys when we were riding out of town.
So part of the story checks
So
out.
part of it checks. And while they're still trying to figure out what's going on, Mal and
Red shirt.
Hayden and Bitch Baby are like start shooting at the people and trying to make it seem like there's a whole posse
Wait,
up there.
isn't Peyton the one slung over the horse?
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Yeah, that's right.
Sorry,
So it's just Mal and
it's just
Bitch
Mal
Baby.
and
It's just
the guy.
Mal being a great trick
Mostly
shot.
Mal.
It's mostly
Yeah.
Mal, because he's like an exceptional sniper.
Now, Peyton is
Playing dead on the horse.
playing dead on the horse, but he's also, like, I guess, while everybody's distracted, he's kind of slowly, he is right in front of the money box, and he's sort of, like, tying a rope around it.
Mm-hmm.
Emmett charges for the outlaws' horses, and he's like, we gotta get to those horses! And as, you know,
He's
everybody
like, "We
else is
gotta
pinned
ride
down
out
and
to-"
confused.
Yeah.
Gotta ride out and meet him, and
He,
that's
like,
the only
he
way.
he lets all the horses out, jumps on his horse, Peyton pops up, and they start riding and, like, herding the horses out in front of them so the outlaws can't, chase them on horseback because all the horses are gone.
And the outlaws were all like, you know what? The only assholes I think is going on is there's 2 assholes up there and there's 2 assholes down here, and I think those assholes are with those assholes.
Yes, like, the guy who's the head honcho, he is actually really smart. He's like, this is some fuckery here.
He sees through it, but he just doesn't have the will of his other guys behind him to actually.
Because the other guys are like,
Everybody's confused.
this is fine.
And Emmett is wise enough to know all you need
Is
is for
some
people to
doubt.
be confused.
Yeah,
Yeah.
some confusion, and you can get away in that.
So they ride out a canyon with the money box
Peyton- yeah.
tumbling behind them.
And they meet Mal and Bitch Baby. And they're like congratulating each other, and they're like, yay, we did it.
And they pop
for
open the
some
box
reason-
to check on it.
And for some reason, Bitch Baby is like, I knew it! You guys were gonna steal from us too! And
Yeah,
they're all
I
like...
was not clear on why he suddenly decided that was the case, because all they did was check to see if it was still there.
Yeah,
I
and
think he was just jumping to conclusions.
Yeah.
well,
he was.
they're counting the money.
Yeah.
You don't count the money.
except they weren't even counting the
No,
money.
they were
were
just
just
looking at
They
it.
were like,
Looking at it.
okay, yep, it's in there. But he is about to shoot them all because he thinks they're bandits too. When he gets shot in the chest by, like, one of the bandits who was a
Who
lookout
was- yeah.
on the top of the
A
canyon.
lone lookout.
And that lookout promptly gets sniped.
By
Yeah.
Mal.
Yeah,
No.
Mal
because
blows a hole.
Mal comes in clutch at every single turn.
So
Mal is really, like, one of the most competent.
Yes.
yes, he is.
And he gets the short end of the stick in this movie.
Yeah,
he
he's
does
not-
he does get a reward at the end, but man, does his character go
He
through
goes
it.
through a lot, and we can talk about
The brutalizing of black characters in film.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's kind of...
It's uncomfortable.
on one hand, it's like
Like, yeah, this was a
life
rough
fucking
era.
sucked in many ways, and people killed black people much more indiscriminately than other white people.
Yeah,
but also,
trigger
This-
warning.
Yeah, in this
Yeah.
time and in this place,
but
the way
did
his
this,
character is treated probably would have happened.
But did this need to be like?
Depicted on
Did
film
we
in the
have
way
to
it was.
heap it up?
Yeah.
the way it was?
Like, I'm like, his mother had already... Okay,
Yeah,
when we get on
we'll
the
get there.
character
Yeah, we'll get there.
motivations, we don't really... Yeah.
But anyway, so they return with the money and with Bitch Baby's body.
Mm-hmm.
And literally his body is not cold before Peyton starts trying to put moves on this little lady, Hannah.
Uh-huh. And literally, like, Jake's like, her old man ain't even cold yet.
Yeah. I guess she's receptive. I mean, he was kind of an asshole, it seemed like.
I mean,
so.
I feel like it's a rough era.
Yeah.
And you have to, like, roll with the punches and move on quick.
As I said during the film, 1 dick, 2 dick, dead dick, new dick.
Yep.
Fine.
But they, they get closer to Silverado, and as they get closer to Silverado, the farms people sort of like peel off to go kind of set up on their plots of land, and Peyton goes with Hannah just to kind of like make sure she gets there safe or whatever. Mal peels off to go find his
Plot of
family
land,
farm.
yeah.
Peyton and Emmett head into Silverado to meet with their sister before they
Jake
head...
and Emmett.
Yeah, sorry. Jake and Emmett head into Silverado to meet their sister before they move on to California.
Yeah, our heroes think they've parted ways for good.
Yeah. However.
And then the plot happens.
And then the plot actually begins to happen.
This is an hour into a 2-hour movie, and I think
We are
like,
an hour into our episode.
and I'm not going to personally dock it points, because it worked for me.
yeah, it
Like,
was still
yeah.
entertaining.
Like we said at the beginning, it doesn't feel long and drawn out.
But I do remember thinking, over the course of that first hour, like, I'm enjoying this, but what is the plot? Like,
I thought it was just gonna be like a kind of slice of life.
Yeah, like
these are these guys.
adventure.
This is this.
well, and I
these-
was fine with that.
this
But
group's journey.
I kept
Yeah.
thinking, like, usually you can tell where the plot hook comes in. Like, you can almost feel it when it happens. And it just didn't happen for the first hour, and I was like, okay, this is unusual. And then the hook comes in, I was like,
And you're like,
there it is.
Yeah.
But I do think people who are less patient with movies might have ducked out of this one for that reason.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and it's also not typical of modern pacing.
Yeah, it's really not. Like, it's unusual, and I liked it, but I can see why maybe that might have hurt its performance.
Yeah.
I can see that too.
Because, like, anymore, we are, especially now, like, if you don't know why what's happening is happening in the first, like, 10 or 15 minutes of the movie.
Or even the
Yeah.
first fucking 10 pages of a book. Which drives me nuts because, I don't know, I think that there's something
It's okay to
kinda
let yourself get a
lost.
feel for a setting.
Yeah, I feel like
If you, like,
the
have
setup
to-
here, if you wait it out, really works. Because
Yeah.
nothing, I feel like, is not used later on in the movie.
Well,
Yeah,
and it
like-
wouldn't feel as deep. You wouldn't have, like, the same kind of connection to the characters.
Camaraderie between
Yeah,
them.
the
Like, they
camaraderie
actually
between
take
the
time to
characters.
set that up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's been given space for the characters to breathe. Like, I do think it was a good thing. I do think that may have also been what hurt it in the end, just because it was atypical.
I will
Yeah, I
say,
can
like,
see
a
that.
movie that does something similar but does it really, really worse is The Wild Bunch, because you have this collection of, really
Miscreants.
miscreant, raucous dudes, and there's not really a plot. They're just doing bad
stuff.
things. And,
Huh.
But this movie does it better.
Yeah. This is basically where we start actually learning Emmett's and Jake's story.
Yeah, what their deal is.
So it turns out that Emmett has done time.
5 years for murder.
Yeah. And I think it was one of those things where it was like justified. Like Emmett was like, it was defensive. Basically, the head rancher guy drew on his brother and was going to kill Jake. So Emmett killed the rancher.
McKendrick.
McKendrick, yeah.
McKendrick. And so Emmett has returned. He and Jake are just going to pass through and go to California, but they want to see their sister and her family before they go. Emmett, for some reason, is convinced that bygones are bygones and that the current McKendrick is not going to hold a grudge.
See, I think he
Because-
says that. I'm not sure how much he believes it.
Yeah, but he's like, I served my time, so they should be satisfied.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But
He's not satisfied.
his theory, I think, is proven false when he's walking through town with Jake or something. No, I think, he has a nephew named Augie.
Mm-hmm.
And Augie is riding the paint pony that Emmett has brought with him all this way with this weird brand on it. And some men in town see Augie riding this horse, and they're like, "Where'd you get that horse?" And they drag him in front of McKendrick. Emmett happens to show up and intervene, but as it turns out, the new McKendrick head had changed the brand, and the brand that's on this horse is the McKendrick brand. Ergo, like, it was McKendrick who sent the men after Emmett. And
Way back at the beginning of the movie,
yeah.
which is like an hour and 15 minutes ago at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah, sent them in after him to kill him.
Yeah, so obviously bygones are not bygones here.
They do not
Meanwhile,
be gone.
tragedy is happening on several fronts because meanwhile, Mal has gone to find his family's farm, and when he gets there, the farm is overrun with cattle, and the farmhouse is a burned out husk.
Razed to the ground.
Yeah.
And he goes to check it out, and he's really despondent. And he's almost shot when his pop comes up out of the darkness and, almost doesn't recognize him. And then he's like, "Oh, it's you, son." And
Yeah, it turns out, like, his mom has died in the 9 months since he received that letter.
yeah, she was really sick, but she didn't want to tell Mal.
And his sister went off to live in town because she couldn't deal with farm life, and also they burned it down. And his dad's just been living in a cave this
Yeah.
whole time.
Yeah, so his dad's been, living up in some caves and some canyons, just kind of evading McKendrick's men. And McKendrick's cattle have all overrun his farm. And as it turns out, McKendrick's men are also harassing the new farmers who have come in to claim their allotments.
And a little bit of context for any listeners who might not live in the Great Plains or the American West. There was this thing called the Cattle Wars. There was this whole conflict between how the land in the West was going to be apportioned and used between farmers and ranchers.
And with no consideration at all for the Native American people whose
not at
land
all.
this was.
But they don't show up
Is-
in this movie at all.
Yeah, actually,
they don't.
that's one thing we'll have to talk about, because like there's zero Native representation in this movie. It's a little bizarre.
Yeah.
But
They just aren't there, Jamie. The
yeah.
land was so empty. That's why all the settlers claimed it, right?
yeah, it's fine, totally.
But also, coincidentally, just to put in here, related to the plot, Emmett's sister and her husband are the people who handle
the documentation for like all the farmers' deeds and stuff.
Yeah, which will come into play later. So
Yeah.
they're already on McKendrick's shit list for that.
But yeah,
alone.
that's a little background historical context for non-Americans or anybody else who might not be familiar with why is this happening.
Yeah. It's actually a much longer conversation, but we don't need to turn this into a history podcast just yet.
No, and nor do we need to start another podcast.
Yeah. No, we
Another
don't.
podcast, you
Not
say.
at all. Anyway. So yeah, they've been harassing the farmers who have, including that little lady Hannah, who have come to stake their claim on their land. They paid for.
Yeah, that's actually kind of the next scene that we get to, because we are in Silverado, figure out Jake and Emmett's deal. Then we go to Mal on the burned out
Well,
farm.
and then
Don't
Peyton.
forget Peyton.
Well, that's what I'm saying. And then we get to Peyton, who's hanging out with the settlers.
Well,
and
no,
McKendrick's-
actually,
No.
it wasn't. No. That's
Wait.
not what
Skipping
happened.
ahead.
So,
Oh, okay.
So then we go over to Peyton, and Peyton is happy that Silverado has a saloon. He walks in.
Oh, yeah.
It's a beautiful saloon. It's like perfect. He goes up to get a drink and meets the saloon keeper, who is just this wonderful tiny little woman named Stella.
Imagine Edna Mode, except in real life. And
Yeah.
Without the black bob, but
Well,
she
yeah.
definitely has the personality.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And I looked it up. This actress is 4'9".
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, she's a little lady.
And there's this really fun establishing shot where, she walks by Peyton. We see how short she is. And then she walks up behind the bar and sort of does like the escalator trick that people do behind countertops. And there's a little ramp behind there for her.
Yeah. And he is like instantly charmed by her. And they are having a great time with some
back and forth.
back and
There's
forth.
like-
Witty repartee.
There's like instant chemistry
There
between
really
them.
is. And it continues.
It's not necessarily romantic, but it could be interpreted that way. But it's just like they have great chemistry.
Yeah, they are fast friends. Stella divulges to Peyton that she isn't the one who actually owns this saloon. She just helps operate it with the help of this guy named Kelly, who is sort of the guy who manages the gambling that happens in the saloon.
Yes.
And she does not have a high opinion of him, but she has a even lower opinion of the guy who owns the saloon, who happens to walk in at that moment, and guess who it is? It's Peyton's friend Cobb. And Peyton's face like instantly falls. And it's not just, as you find out, that Cobb is the saloon owner. He is also the sheriff.
He's
And
like, yeah, I got a pretty sweet
town
deal.
sheriff.
Puts his hands on his hips and reveals the silver star.
Well,
on
and
his
Peyton
chest.
genuinely is just like, you can
Stricken.
see, he's like, oh, fuck.
This is not a guy who needs authority.
Yeah, and so things are really interesting between him and Stella at that point, because she's like, wait, you're a friend of Cobb's, but like,
But you clearly don't like him.
but also like, it's an interesting tension. So anyway, Cobb's like, hey, Peyton, I want to talk to you anyway. Come over here. And he calls Kelly over, and he's like, Kelly, I just wanted you to be here when I told you that I'm firing you and giving your job to Peyton. He doesn't even ask Peyton. He's just like, yep, you're gonna be my new guy who runs the gambling in this saloon.
Well, I think he does kind of say it as an offer, but he's like, I wanted you to be here when I offer your job to Peyton.
Yeah.
And he doesn't really have a fallback plan because he does instantly fire Kelly.
Yep.
Yeah, he doesn't just instantly fire Kelly. He punches him in the stomach, and then Kelly tries to, like, come back and shoot Cobb, which is a bad idea, and Cobb shoots him dead.
But not before getting thrown out the saloon doors to check off another Western tropes
Yes.
box.
Yes.
Yep.
So Peyton is like, well, okay. And it's kind of implied that he kind of does it for Stella as much as he does it for,
Because she clearly needs some
himself.
backup here.
Yeah. Meanwhile, sort of somewhere in all of this, Jeff Goldblum enters the picture. And he is, I guess, a rich gambling guy who wants to run some gambling games in the saloon.
Rambling, gambling.
Yeah,
And
I
he
think there's
steps
a
out-
couple more scenes between here and there, but yes.
But, yeah, and he steps out and he's got this, I don't know, like either ram's wool or like maybe it's even like buffalo, like some sort of fancy like cloak over his really nice suit. And he's got like amazing, his hair looks great.
Oh,
He's
his
literally
hair is
called
so
Slick.
Yeah, he's literally
perfect.
called Slick, and it's just like, oh my god.
His hair is goals.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
And-
great.
Should we mention that it's also kind of implied that he might be involved with...
Well, we're gonna get to
Yeah,
that.
we'll get there.
Okay.
Because we kind of figure that out when Mal gets back into
Yeah,
town.
that's true.
But before Mal gets into town, there's some sort of, hootenanny down at the farmers put on some kind of square dance or something.
Yeah, they're celebrating finally getting to
And-
the promised land.
Yeah, and Peyton at this point he's had his little conversation with Hannah, and she's had that whole speech of like, what I want is to, do the hard work of farming this land, and most men, they're just not interested in that. And Peyton was like, you're right, I'm kind of not interested in
Yeah.
that. And so he's like, hey, Emmett, if you want to go for her, like, you will not trip over me. And so Emmett is at this square dance with the
And so
sellers,
is Jake,
with Jake.
and he's immediately macking on another lady because in addition to...
Jake is.
Yeah, because in addition to being an acrobat and a trick shooter, he's just a horn dog.
Yeah, he is a ladies' man.
But the ladies like him, too.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely fully
It's
reciprocated.
mutual. McKendrick's men ride into this party and they start shooting things up. I think they might even kill a couple people.
They kill
but
a couple
they're-
of people,
but
they
they're
shoot the pigs,
deputized, so
They-
like
They light
let
the farms on fire.
Yeah.
They let the piggies out, and then they started shooting 'em.
Yeah, it's-
it was so sad.
yep. And Emmett and Jake kind of help drive them off.
And kill a few in the process as well.
Yeah, which has now put them even more on McKendrick's shit list.
They were already there.
Also on the maybe not great side of the law, which Cobb then comes to, basically warn Peyton that his friends have gotten on the shit list and he better just sit this one out. And Peyton is kind of like, he is trying not to be a violent person. So he's like, okay.
Yeah, basically the entire movie, he keeps trying to stay out of trouble, and trouble just keeps finding him.
Yeah, and he thinks he's a big believer in luck, too. It's like,
as a
damn, there's
gambler.
just some bad luck. But anyway, meanwhile, Mal is with his dad up in the caves. He's like, I'm gonna, try to help you set everything right. And,
Well, so we did skip a scene because there is they meet some of McKendrick's men at the burned out farm. So McKendrick's men have shown up basically in all quarters of the plot
to
at
harass
this point.
all of the different people, and they warn off Mal and his dad. And Mal and his dad push back, and they're like,
able
"We're
to
gonna-"
hold their own because Mal's dad is riding behind Mal on his horse and is able to use that concealment to pull a rifle on McKendrick's men and chase them off, which is pretty great. Love that.
But then-
it shows Mal's dad as the badass that he is.
Yes,
Like that's
who
where
has raised a badass.
that's where Mal gets his riflemanship from.
Yeah, but all this comes back around when in the a couple mornings later maybe Mal's dad goes down to the river to get some water and McKendrick's men show up and they shoot him.
Like cowards.
They kill him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They
And
set upon an old man getting water.
so, and here's where I both have a problem with the characters in the movie, but I have a problem with the movie itself.
Yeah.
Because
Mal already had enough motivation.
yeah, he already had enough motivation to get involved with the rest of the plot. His dad didn't need to die to motivate him, and we've already seen this black man brutalized. Did we need more of this? So I got, like, actual angry when Mal's dad died.
Yeah.
I feel like this movie has a trouble with, like, putting almost too many carrots in front of their characters, because they did it earlier with the introducing the ladies. Like, this is why you need to go to Silverado.
They kind of, like, over-motivate all of the characters. It's like, they probably were going to do this. You didn't need to keep driving at it.
Yeah.
In this case, it also leads to the brutal death of a black man on screen again, so...
And it's also, like, later on with the, like, motivation with Emmett, he loses none of his family members at all. Even, like, the distant, brother-in-law of his sister.
Even the ones that get really gravely injured. So there's just a huge disparity here, because Mal has already lost a bunch.
His mother, his father. And then again, another family member of his...
Also is endangered.
Yeah, and
like, critically endangered.
Critically injured, too.
So I guess content warning, this almost made me lose patience with the movie. If you have even more reason to be sensitive to that, it might lose you because of it.
Yeah. So Mal, he heads back into town briefly to look for his sister, Ray, and who we learn is working as a prostitute at the saloon. And she seems to be living, like... It's interesting. This definitely does not shame the prostitutes at the saloon.
Not at all.
It never outright says they're prostitutes either. I'm just going to say.
That's true.
It strongly
heavily implied
but they could be interpreted as saloon girls.
They're to sort
serving the beer.
And
or help, make the gamblers feel...
Yeah, like hostesses.
Good. Yeah.
But something that I did like that the movie did was it kind of introduced Mal's sister Ray visually to us as just sort of an anonymous face in the saloon a couple scenes earlier. So we're already familiar with who this is and why she's here.
But then we find out that
then she becomes a named character, and I thought that was kind of neat.
Involved with Slick.
Yeah, her current sort of squeeze, I guess, is Slick.
Mm-hmm.
And she refuses to go back to the farm with Mal, even though she's heard that their father has been killed, because she's just like...
She's angry at Mal.
Yeah, why are you here? You left us. You swore up and down you would never come back, and you have not been my brother since that day. And now mommy's dead and daddy's dead, and, who do you think you are coming back in here and then asking me to, like, uproot my life because you've decided to come back?
Which, fair enough, like...
Yeah, she is justifiably angry. So he heads back into the hills. I think he does not stay in
because he's
Silverado.
plotting his vengeance against
McKendrick's men.
For what they did to his father.
I'm trying to remember, like, the series of events now. I'm pretty sure
because there's
that
so
what
many
happens...
plot threads happening.
Wasn't there, like, an event where it was Slick, and it was, I think, Cobb and Payton and Emmett, and they were in the saloon, and they were, like, discussing something going on, and, like, it's revealed that Slick actually has a knife in his
Oh,
boot.
no, what happens is Emmett and Jake are in the saloon. Jake is flirting with some girl
he's getting in trouble with his dick again.
That, the blue-eyed guy, the, like...
Tyree
is sweet on. I guess she's like the other sort of, like, maybe prostitute.
Hostess.
Saloon girl.
Yeah. They get in a fight over her. It's looking nasty. It's looking like they're about to kill each other, but I think Payton stops it. He's like, no, not in this saloon. Don't do it.
I was just kissing her.
Again? Jake, God damn it.
He's a himbo.
He is. He
Yeah.
is.
Oh, yeah.
So,
I just kissed a girl. That's all
I
I
liked
did.
that
it.
seems to lead to you shooting people a lot.
Like, a lot.
Yeah.
So, and while things are tense, you see that Slick kind of, like, is pulling up his pant leg, getting ready to, like, throw a knife. He has
A really
knife
fancy
concealed.
boot knife.
Yes. Payton manages, and I think Cobb too, maybe, manages to de-escalate the situation.
Do you think he's like getting the knife out for Peyton and Jake to use against them, or is it more to
Unclear.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Unclear.
it's not clear. I think he was probably going to use it on either Jake or Tyree because they were the two like
instigators.
At this
Yeah.
point in the film, we don't know whether Slick is
Whose
like
side he's
actually a good guy or actually a bad guy, because
Or if he's just on his own side.
Yeah.
because it's his characterization, you don't really know.
It's
yet.
super ambiguous. Yeah,
So,
And it's Jeff Goldblum, so you're automatically like, oh, I like
yeah,
you.
you want to like him.
yeah. But
He's a
something
charismatic,
happens.
you know.
What is it? Something happens and Emmett starts practicing for a confrontation with McKendrick because he knows there's going to be one.
Well, I think
It's not that his family gets hurt yet, because that
No, I
comes
think it's
after.
after he sees the brand and realizes
Yeah, it's
that means
it's after he
McKendrick
gives the horse
no,
back.
actually, it's
sent the men after him.
it might also be after the thing that happens with the farmers.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, that
it's
too.
like those
Yeah.
two things in combination.
So he's out and he's out practicing his little gun tricks, and he's a great shot. But
Yeah, he's set up like a shooting range out in the middle of nowhere, basically.
yeah, when he stops to reload, a whole bunch of McKendrick's men ambush him, and they string him up between two horses, and they're like riding a horse over him, so he's getting all beat the fuck up.
I have to give props to the bad guys here, because they were actually pretty intelligent about it, and
Yeah.
they waited to after he had done all his practice shots, and then they came out and they were like, "You're
empty, friend."
So that was actually pretty smart.
And like in the process of getting beat the crap up, Malachi pulls his second big
We're-
damn heroes
we're-
moment.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well,
he-
we have to tell how.
So, well, Mal he's, I guess, kind of just been around. They're kind of in his stomping grounds.
Yep.
And so he responds, and he...
Well, what they do to Emmett is they like hog tie him and they run him over with their horse.
Yeah,
So-
I
Yeah.
We didn't say that.
Yeah, she just said it.
When?
Just now.
Yeah.
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 Oh, okay. Well, did you tell viscerally how the horse stomped him and
Yeah,
like
it didn't
stomp him, but it
could
kicked
have,
him.
It could have killed him.
Yes.
Yeah, well, it definitely... Yeah, they were surprised when he wasn't dead, because it had kicked him in the side, it had kicked him in the head, but he wasn't dead yet.
There is at least one broken rib in there. I'm
he
sure.
is not in a good way.
No.
Broken rib, skull fracture.
But Mal shows up, and he shoots most or all of them.
I think he leaves one.
I think one gets away. So he gets Emmett, and he takes him up into, the caves,
his
and
hidey holes.
is
Yep.
like nursing him back to health.
Yep.
I guess one of these men had taken his father's Henry rifle, and one of the men
Mal's
who...
father. Yeah.
Yeah, one of the men who was beating up on Emmett, who Mal then killed, had that Henry rifle. So he's reclaimed his father's Henry rifle.
They kind of piece together, like, while they're in camp and he's trying to, nurse Emmett back to health, Emmett expresses the need to go back to and get Jake because he got in
Because he
trouble.
knows he's...
Yeah.
Well, he knows that he's in danger. He's like, if they are after me, they will be after Jake.
Yeah.
They're
And he's
targets.
right.
Yes.
So Mal says that he will go check on it. Meanwhile, shit's going down.
Yes.
Meanwhile, back at the ranch.
Yeah.
Except not really.
McKendrick's men are looking for Jake. Mal goes to his sister, Ray, because he's like, I can't go up to their house.
The men are everywhere, and
Yeah,
Mal
the men
sees
are
them
everywhere.
in the street watching
They're
Yes.
the
waiting
house.
for Jake. They will recognize me.
It's late
I
at
need somebody
night.
to go over there and warn them that McKendrick's men are going to come out. Tell them what happened to Emmett. McKendrick's men are coming after Jake. And Ray she's not really happy about this, but she's like, well, it's going to look weird if I go there too. So let me get Slick to go and tell
Set
them
things up,
and set
yeah.
up a meeting for you and his family. We see in a sort of cut to scene that Jake is actually just having a roll in the hay with the girl from the saloon.
This time his dick saves him from trouble.
Yes.
Yes, in this instance, but not Mal,
No,
because Slick is actually a fucking snake, and he tells Mal, yeah, so I talked to them, they're going to meet you behind the church. So Mal's like, he has no reason to doubt this guy, and so he walks right into a trap, and they beat him the fuck up.
They also
And arrest him.
Yeah, they capture him.
Meanwhile, Jake comes in from his tryst with the gal, and he has seen that his sister Kate has left out a piece of pie for him, and he's like eating his little piece of pie, and he walks into the living room, and there is his sister, his brother-in-law, and his nephew all tied up.
With
and
men pointing guns at them.
he tries to fight them. Brother-in-law tries to fight them. The brother-in-law gets shot. They knock out his sister. They take him. They take him and Augie.
There's a moment where it literally looks like they're about to shoot the
child.
The child, yeah.
And I think
10 or 12-year-old boy.
I think McKendrick himself is like, no, we're not going to shoot a
That's
kid.
a literal child.
Yeah.
But anyway, they do burn down the house, which helps McKendrick's cause because, again, all the documentation of,
Land
who
ownership.
has what plot of land is in there. So, shit sucks, yo.
Yep.
And this is kind of Peyton's turning point, though, because
Well, yeah, it's
Cobb-
like the long dark night of the soul. It's the end of Act 2, everything is shit moment.
Yeah, Peyton is trying to put out the fire, and Cobb tells him to stop, and he's like, hey, by the way, Peyton, just in case you're... Because Peyton's like, you told me to do nothing, but we did not talk about this happening. And then Cobb's like, you better be careful. Somebody might get hurt. And Peyton's like, me? And he's like, no, not you. And he basically threatens Stella.
I think we should tell the dog story now for Peyton.
Oh yeah, this gets revealed just before this. Is that where you're going?
No, I was going to go with the cool shot of Cobb in his, really pristine white silvery hat walking towards the camera with the
burning
house.
And
then you're like,
very
wait a
As if
sinister.
emerging from hell.
It's like,
Yeah.
wait a second. Is
Yeah.
this the bad guy?
White hat bad guy.
Yeah.
And Peyton has the black hat good guy. And
Yeah. But
yeah,
so earlier, yeah.
So the dog story is really good characterization for Peyton because pretty much he's the sort of person who keeps picking up strays in his life and rescuing, strays, whether they're dogs or people.
Yeah, Cobb explains, you never know what Peyton is going to care about to Stella. He's telling her the story at some point earlier in the movie. And he's like, take what happened,
Why they stopped riding together.
Why we stopped riding together. We've done the things that we do, which he's very vague about whatever they were up to, but obviously up to no good. And they were being chased by a posse. And at some point, one of the guys in their gang had picked up a dog.
Feeding it and just keeping it around so the dog was following their
Yeah,
group.
the dog was following them, and then sometime in their fleeing the posse, this dog got tangled up in Tyree's horse's legs, and Tyree, jumps off his horse, and he's about to kill the dog, and Peyton, that just made him snap, and he went to the dog's defense. The dog was shot, but not killed, and he was like, leave me, just get out of here, and there's still a posse breathing down their necks.
Yeah, this is all happening while the posse's chasing them.
Yeah, and he's just, serious. He's like, I do not want to be with you anymore. Get gone. And they're like, the kicker is, Peyton never even liked that dog, but he...
It was just a bridge too far.
But it was just a bridge too far. And so they were asking him, so where's the dog? And eventually he is just kind of like, well, it left me. I guess, he got picked up by the posse. He went to jail.
Yep. Went to jail for a dog.
Yeah, went to jail for a dog. The dog, didn't remain by his side. But it's just, again, it illustrates that Peyton is, he just has a soft spot for very, I guess, to this gang of hardened
and
cowboy criminals.
It's also
the damnedest things.
when they ask him, they're like, where's your dog this time, Peyton? It could be interpreted not necessarily asking about that specific dog, but what sort of lost cause, have you gotten yourself into this time, Peyton?
And
The bleeding
Where's your
heart.
dog?
The link to this is whenever Cobb's like, hey, who's the dog or whatever, and he looks over at Stella.
Yeah.
Yeah, he threatens Stella. And that is enough for Peyton for now. He really cares about Stella, and he will not do anything to
It's
endanger
really sweet,
her.
actually.
And that's why this is also sort of interesting as a Western, because this relationship between Peyton and Stella is definitely atypical.
Yeah, and he's not motivated by romance or sex, really.
Stella-
There might be some kind of charisma there, but it's never explicitly she is a romantic
She's
interest.
she's not the typical love interest or interest of a man in a Western.
But he just cares about her.
Yeah.
Because he cares about her. He
She has-
respects her. He treasures her. And I think that's kind of,
She
a
has
bit
that
unusual.
je ne sais quoi.
Yeah.
Well, and she really does. She's so charming in this movie.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, all right. Jake and Augie are
Away.
Captured.
captured.
Kidnapped. We don't know what happened.
Damseled.
Peyton is out of the way. Mal is in a jail cell and he has been brutalized, and Ray goes to visit him.
Oh, and Emmett's like almost on his deathbed.
Yeah,
he's
in the
in bad
caves.
After
shape.
being trampled by a
Now,
horse.
Ray
But-
is starting in a conversation, I guess, that she had with the
Like-
girl that Jake was with.
Yeah.
She learns that Slick did not go to Emmett's family like she asked. So she knows that he has betrayed her, and he's the reason her brother is in jail.
And she's able to, as she's leaning on him in the bar, sneak his boot knife.
Yeah, she
out.
takes his boot knife. And so she goes to visit her brother, and, in typical fucking form, one of the jailers tries to sort of search her person
Have his way
and
with
humiliate her.
Accost her.
And she fucking whips out her knife and stabs him in the back. But he also shoots her in the, stomach. So she is also wounded. She passes out. But it is enough to, I guess, for Mal to be able to, first grab the knife and kill the next guy throw it and kill the next guy who tries to come into the jail.
And then make
that
his break
heard
for it.
the gunshot.
Yeah, and then he gets the keys and he grabs his sister. He takes her to Stella. Stella agrees to stash her somewhere safe and go try to get a doctor. And he escapes and he goes back to Emmett.
And Stella uses this moment. There's also this private one-on-one conversation between her and Peyton earlier where he tells her...
Well, he
that-
does not tell her that that she is what Cobb has against him.
Well, but they do have that
But he
conversation
intuits,
at some point.
Stella intuits it, and she tells him, look, Peyton, I don't want to be the reason why all these people are getting hurt and dying. You know what you have to do. You have to kill Cobb. She just comes right out and fucking
Yeah,
says
there's
it.
no
She's
implication.
like, I can't get hurt if he's dead.
Yeah,
So-
that's exactly it. She's like, I can't get hurt if he's dead. And Peyton's like, light bulb moment, okay.
That's such queen shit.
You're so right, Stella.
Stella, one of the by far best characters in this movie.
Yeah, and so Peyton is now kind of plotting the part that he will play in the coming 24 to 48 hours. So...
That's something else about this movie. It's very unclear what span of time it takes place over.
Yeah.
Like,
Seems
is it a
quick
week?
paced, though.
Is it a couple of months? I don't know.
Yeah, it's
I
unclear.
guess a week. Seems like it's...
No one ever changes their costumes, really.
Well, I mean, you don't
people
have a lot
only
of...
really had one change of clothes back then. most of the time.
Yeah, they had only a couple usually
Yeah.
out in
Yeah.
the West, So Mal gets back to Emmett. Emmett is kind of on his feet, but it's clear that he is not doing great. But at least Mal has the information that he needs. He's like, Emmett, your brother-in-law has been shot. He's not doing good. Your sister is hurt really bad. And they've taken Augie and Jake. And Emmett's like,
All right.
what the fuck?
Suit up montage!
Yeah, they have a really fun pseudo montage, and oh my god, there's this shot where Mal has like double bullet bandoliers across his chest, and he's dual wielding rifles.
Henry rifles, yeah.
It's
were sexy.
so hot.
Yeah.
Like, Danny Glover's not my usual type, but in this moment, I was just like, oh.
So I'm trying to remember how this all works out. Because towards the end, all the different strands are converging. At some point, Slick almost
Well, they're...
compromises the game.
Well, because at this point they know Mal's broken out of prison, and they...
Oh, they go get Jake and Augie first, though.
Yeah.
So-
But in the meantime, Cobb's men are trying to find
Ray,
because
yeah.
they know she must have helped him break out, and they're trying to find Stella to keep that hanging over Peyton's head.
Yes.
Yeah. But first, I think Mal, Emmett, and Peyton go to
The McKendrick
McKendrick's.
Ranch, yeah.
No. First of all, they go to Mal's homestead, and they rustle the cattle.
Oh, yeah, that's
yeah,
right. They
yeah.
weaponize a stampede against the McKendrick Ranch.
Yeah, they
It's
force a
incredible.
stampede down on the McKendrick Ranch.
They Mufasa'd him.
Yes, and then
Does the stampede count as a Chekhov's gun?
Well, kind of, but they
It's just
set up that there's a
shut up.
big ass herd of cattle over here.
It's like a brick
and then they
joke.
use them.
Yeah.
yeah, it's good setup.
Good.
They get inside, they kill some people. Emmett gets inside, he gets Augie. Augie is beside himself. He's like, Jake, he fell off his horse when they were driving us here.
And he died.
And Emmett is just like, Jake
off his
literally
horse.
never falls off his horse. He's fine. So, and he is fine. Basically, Jake fell off a cliff,
he said he
but
fell off his horse off a cliff, and Emmett's like very skeptical.
Jake the acrobat did not fall off his horse.
Yeah.
Like, at some point, I don't even know where, he just, like, pops up from the roof or something, like, from the ceiling from somewhere. He's just like,
yeah.
here now.
He was in he I guess like snuck onto the McKendrick ranch at some point and was hiding in the barn, like, waiting for his moment. And like he is a really good dual wielder too. So
Doing
he
his
can really
pistol
clean
tricks,
up shop when he
And
wants
this
to.
movie does have a lot of comedic moments throughout it. Like the tone is kept light, despite all the tragedy happening.
Yeah, it does mix it up, and I do appreciate that, because that makes the bright moments shine more, and it makes the dark moments hit harder.
So one of the funny moments was during the shootout here, when Peyton's trying to get, I think it's Peyton, or is it Emmett, is trying to get Danny Glover's, is trying to get Mal's attention as he's on the roof.
Oh, it's Peyton.
Yeah, it's Peyton. Obviously, they're in a firefight, and Mal can't hear him, that there's a guy sneaking up behind him about to take him out. So instead, Peyton shoots his gun right next to where Mal is.
Yeah, he
Mal
hits the
looks
chimney
over,
right next to him.
and Mal is about to shoot him, sees that it's Peyton,
And he's like,
and then
why are you
Peyton,
trying to shoot me?
It's like,
indicates behind him.
Yeah.
And I was like, actually, this feels like something that is actually how you would do it
well,
in the West if you needed to get somebody's attention
the
fast.
stunt work in this movie is great. Like, it has good gunplay, it has good stunts, it has great horse stunts.
Oh, yeah.
there's a couple of Jake moments in there. One where he clambers up into the rafters of that said barn, gets around to some guys, and like drops down and just goes blam.
Well,
yeah,
so
there's a part where he shoots
Yeah.
two people on a porch in like
on a
different
wraparound
directions
porch at 90
at the
degree
same
angles.
time.
One of them's Tyree, who has been set up as like, oh, he's going to be like the mini boss fight before the big finale. No, he goes down like a bitch. Like, he gets shot in the back.
Dropped right away.
Yeah.
It's so
he doesn't get shot in the back. That's why Jake was like, "Hey."
Oh, yeah,
he wouldn't
that's
shoot him
right.
In the back.
But it's so funny
No, our
because
heroes are too good to shoot them in the back.
they gave him all this setup and then just nah.
Yeah.
Which I do appreciate, kind of, because it's not about him.
Yeah.
No.
Well, and we'll get around to like kind of the interesting structure that is this movie, but
He's a little bitch who shot a dog, so.
yes. So now that the gang is all back together, they ride into Silverado, and now we're prepared for like Cobb's men.
And they do.
So and I
by
guess
the way,
McKendrick is also there as well.
I really liked the attention to detail with some things that this movie had. Like, they drop Augie off on their ride into town because
They're just like, don't be in town right now.
Yeah, he's going to have to walk back, and by the time he gets back, like in an hour or so, it's going to all be over.
One way or the other.
other. So I'm like, that's actually nice that they didn't keep the child on the horseback with them as they rode into town.
Yeah, they were like, it's safer for
some
you out
movies
here.
would do.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so they're back in town. This is the point where Slick has found Ray, and there's this very tense period of time where he's holding her
Yeah, he's
basically at gunpoint.
We're gonna wait for your little friend Stella to show up, but who shows up is fucking Mal.
And then Mal uses Slick's own knife against him that he got from Ray.
Yeah.
His sister.
Return to Cinder.
The Chekhov's boomerang.
Yeah. As Slick is like, bam, with a little derringer.
Yeah.
But those things only have like one shot in them,
Well,
so he
I
missed.
I think that one had two.
Whatever the case, Mal gets him, and he doesn't shoot him, he fucking stabs him. And bye-bye, Jeff Goldblum.
But it felt really... So when he was waiting with Ray, though, like, she's not well. She has clearly
she's got a
fever.
fucking bullet in her.
Like, she's feverish. She's, like... Looks like she's, on her deathbed. And he, like, slides in there. And it's just a very icky feeling. Because she can't fight back right now.
Well, and he talks to her like a lover. But he's there to threaten her and possibly...
Slick and slimy.
And it's just like, this scene should make you dislike the character even more.
Yeah.
So,
also, I was going to add a comment of, live by the slutty little knife, die by the slutty little knife.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amen.
So then I feel like that was Mal's big thing there, was
Rescuing
getting
his sister.
Ray.
Yeah.
But
That was his ends are tied up, basically.
He goes up to a rooftop or something, and he's, doing fire
Giving
support
supporting
there.
fire, yeah.
Jake kills the two guys.
The two goons,
Mm-hmm.
Tyree and some other
guy.
I think Emmett
Peyton finds his
horse.
I think not his horse.
No, the pearl handles.
Oh, yeah, he finds
at
the pearl hand.
McKendrick's
Yeah.
ranch, he finds his ivory-handled pistol. So
Thus
he has the
completing
last
his
thing.
side quest.
So Emmett kills McKendrick by basically doing this really interesting bit of stunt work. He is outnumbered. I think McKendrick shoots his rifle and
Disables it.
Yeah, disables
out of
it.
his hand, which was actually like a pretty good shot.
Yeah, so he starts chasing Emmett down, and Emmett takes his horse through this detour into this
right.
this barn
This
or lumber
barn,
mill or
yeah.
something, and kind of gets above sort of
It was like
where the street level is.
I think it was like a hay bale loading
Yeah,
platform.
Like a
Something like
half
that.
wall of
Yeah.
some
And-
sort.
And as McKendrick was riding in front of it to follow him, he
Chased
jumps
him.
his horse over McKendrick, and his horse kicks McKendrick in the head
And kills him. Death by horse.
Which was pretty fucking clever,
I don't.
again.
He launched his he wasn't on the horse at the time. He slapped the horse's ass and it jumped.
No,
he was on
he
the
was
horse.
on the
He was
horse.
on the horse.
Yeah, he was
Yeah.
on the horse.
Stallion. Pawn.
Yeah, it was wild. It was incredible.
I don't think I've ever seen that in a Western before.
But it's really clever.
Yeah,
it
it
is.
is.
And it shows, like you said,
The
he
ingenuity.
doesn't need a gun to kill his enemy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then finally we come to basically the final showdown, which is between Cobb and Payton, and they're having a literal, typical Wild West showdown.
Yeah, draw at high noon.
Yeah.
Yep.
I guess there's no really real reason to draw it out. They don't really draw it out much
Except
in the movie.
for some reason, Stella shows up and stands on the
To be
sidelines.
witness.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, this was my gripe with the movie. I was
Yeah.
like, Stella, what are you doing out in the open?
Yeah.
Like,
Because I kept waiting for
Cobb
Cobb to turn and
shelter.
shoot her.
Yeah.
Yep.
But fortunately, that's not what happened. Payton is just the faster shot. As we've seen, when he does use violence, he's actually really
Very efficient.
Well, yeah, it was established really, really early on
Yeah.
that he is instinctively going for his hip.
Yeah,
and-
he's actually
Yeah.
kind of a gunslinger.
Yep.
He has just renounced his ways.
Yep.
And so he kills Cobb.
And if this was a lesser movie, I would have expected Cobb to actually had drawn towards Stella and
Yeah.
kill her. And
Yeah.
she would have died. If this was a
Yeah.
lesser movie, she would have died.
Yeah, I think
in that moment.
a lesser movie would have done that for Man Pain.
Yep.
But they don't do that. And so, cut to, I guess, a few weeks later, Silverado has rebuilt.
Well, they're actually showing the people rebuilding the town, which, to Claire's point, is a nice attention to detail.
Yeah.
Things are not immediately back to normal. You have to do some work to fix all the shit that they broke.
Emmett's sister Kate and his brother-in-law have recovered. Emmett and Jake are ready to head out to California. Mal and Ray have bought supplies, and they're now going to head out to the farm and rebuild it together.
Mm-hmm.
Payton is now the sheriff of Silverado.
The black hat turns
he
to the
gets-
white hat.
Yeah, and he gets to, stay and hang out at the saloon with Stella, and, he's found sort of his purpose. Basically, thus ends.
The
They all
end.
lived happily
Yeah,
ever
and
after.
Jake and Emmett get the riding off into the sunset ending, but it's heavily implied that they'll be back.
Yeah.
It's implied
Yeah.
that, Jake has a girl at the end, his latest call girl or whatever,
Uh-huh.
and then Emmett, it's kind of implied he'll be back for the
Pioneer
he may
woman.
or may not be back
Yeah.
for Hannah, but they'll at least come back to visit.
Family.
Family.
And Mal and Peyton, because even though they've only known each other for a week, they're all besties now.
Yeah,
Yep.
maybe a few weeks at this point. Mal and Peyton will be able to hang out because they live in the same town.
Yeah, they get
They
a
live the
happy
same.
ending.
And nobody's gonna fuck with Mal while Peyton's there, and Mal will not let them fuck with him either because Mal's a fucking badass.
Yes.
So. Yeah, so
That's Silverado.
That's Silverado, and
It's
I
a
think
fun romp.
Yeah. Well, and also, so for me, one of the really interesting things about this movie is that A, it shows male friendship, as we were talking about earlier in the episode. But B, interestingly, when it comes to actually getting the climax all resolved, it doesn't take up a huge amount of time. They actually manage to mop the villains up pretty easily because actually the whole point of the movie is not that it's not the destination, it's the journey.
Truly,
And
yeah.
it's a lot like what Jamie and I were talking about this, and Jamie drew a comparison between this and Birds of Prey.
Oh, yeah.
Interestingly.
Oh, yeah.
Because the villains are actually not...
They're kind of an afterthought.
Yeah.
The real focus is the 4 main characters.
And how they are evolving over the course of this movie.
And their relationships with each other.
Yeah, and specifically their relationships with each other and how that's changing each other.
Like I said, this movie is basically a My Little Pony Western, and it's awesome.
The power of friendship wins the day.
But it's nice that it's not like, some modern movies have like very long, drawn out final acts that aren't necessarily rewarding for the audience.
And they don't actually...
It's just like long, drawn out drama and
the
tension.
Zack Snyder,
Well,
punch out that takes like 30 minutes.
Oh, God.
It was realistic, though, is the thing. Like, you see bad guys getting shot all the time throughout this movie, and, like, when it comes to a big bad or a mini-boss, they're just simply shot.
They're just some motherfucking
they
guy.
go
just go down like a normal person.
They don't have more
What
HP.
makes this movie
Yeah.
so rewarding is you're actually invested in the characters. Like, it
Yeah.
takes time to establish all of them. They're all well-rounded. Even Augie, the nephew, has his own little character arc throughout the movie.
Yeah.
He's trying to learn how to ride.
Jump
like
on the
Jake.
pony
Yeah.
and do some acrobatics, and then by the time that he gets rescued, they show him, they're like, oh, you have to jump off the roof onto the horse, and he's like, okay, and he does it.
And he does it, yeah.
And that was
So,
bareback, too.
even he has his own little character arc. So all the
Yeah.
characters are very
Yeah.
well-rounded.
I just have to say that I'm really freaking tired of movies that have this 30-minute climax, battle with the villain, and then they spend 5 minutes on the falling action
Yeah.
and tying everything up. And curiously, one of the interesting things that I've seen go around in these circles is directors or writers telling each other you don't want to be like Lord of the Rings, because Lord of the Rings had a really long
Falling
denouement.
action.
Yeah, there were several moments
But I'm
where
like-
you could call them false endings, where you're like, okay, the movie's ending now. Okay, the movie's ending now. But the
But
thing is,
that is
everyone
one of-
fucking loves Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, I'm
Yep.
that was one of the most successful trilogies, ever.
They took the time to tie up all those ends
And
because they took the
people-
time to set them up.
And
I don't-
also, people need that.
Yeah.
People want that. They want to see what happens after.
Yeah.
That is
And
very important.
That's
It's almost like everyone knows what's going to happen,
Everyone knows the villain is going to get fucking dead.
yeah.
But what's going to happen after that?
Well, that about, Lord of the Rings anyway. I didn't really hear the whole, fake ending thing. It happened a little bit whenever it was initially released. But
Well, they
now
had a whole lot of... They had to tie up a lot of
they had a little bit of
lines.
Some fans were critiquing it for
Yeah,
that.
yeah, it was getting some harsh criticisms for it, but
But these
nowadays,
were the same people, too, who were, bitching about Arwen
Yeah.
having a bigger
Yeah.
role than she did in the books. These people were bad faith reviewers, in my opinion.
You don't really
those were
hear-
slightly different, because some of the people... We can talk about Lord of the Rings
Yeah.
the whole podcast.
It's-
I was gonna say
Claire is the
those
Tolkienian,
fans were
we
more
don't need to
like
get into that.
book faith.
I just don't
Yeah.
hear that argument
Faithful.
as
But they were
often
determined
anymore.
not
Yeah.
to like the movie.
But Mitch is right. We've kind of moved on from that, and most people acknowledge, Lord of the Rings' long ending is earned.
Yes,
It's earned and it feels good.
yes.
So,
But what I was going to say was, this Silverado, it kind of has the reverse. If you conceive of the plot as sort of weights at either end, a Marvel movie or a Zack Snyder movie will put just this huge lead weight on the back end, where it's this gigantic climactic battle, and just rush through all of the character setup, all the motivation, all of the backstory. It just fast
the
forwards
things
to
that
that.
make it matter.
Yeah, it's just no, get to the big laser fight. Whereas this movie evenly distributes its weight, because you have the full journey of the characters meeting and getting to know
You have
each
the
other.
context,
and
which you need to appreciate.
we're getting
the
to know
ending.
them. Yeah, it takes the time to set things up, and then it takes the time to pay things off, and it's a satisfying experience because of that.
And not to mention, okay, you have your big climactic battle and stuff, and what all are you doing? You're just shooting lasers at one another. You're not exploring each character's specific abilities in fun and unique ways.
Yeah, and
Whereas
this
with
movie
this
succeeds
one-
in that way, too.
This one does it uniquely because, you have Jake climbing around like a monkey. You have Mal doing
His sharpshooting.
different kind of sharpshootings. You have these moments where it feels like they're just kind of progressing
They all have
a little
unique
bit.
skills.
And the fights tell stories.
Yes.
They're not just fights for spectacle.
Yeah, they are speaking to different characters, different strengths and weaknesses. And I also appreciate that a lot of the characters are thinking through problems the way, I don't know, people who had to live out on the range had to troubleshoot issues.
They think through, they try to...
They utilize their horses more than in a lot of other movies, which I thought was
They do.
really cool.
Yeah, they try to utilize everything at hand. Sometimes they make mistakes, and then they have to double back and try to figure it out from there. Like, it all feels very organic.
Yeah. I haven't watched this movie in a very, very long time. But watching it now, I appreciate it, I think, as much or more so than I did as a kid.
Still holds up pretty well.
Yeah. I mean, again, content warning, 1990s.
Well, this is what? I thought this was 85.
1980s, trying to be, it was like 2 steps forward, 1 step back with some of the way that they handle race.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because Mal's character was
It's
a
just
very
brutalized.
Yeah.
He was a very good character.
He was trying to be represented as like a
well-rounded.
very cool, badass black cowboy.
Well, yeah, and he's a fantastic character. I
And
adore
very-
Mal in this movie.
But then,
And also, like,
but then how
very-
they treated his character. Is a little-
Yes.
He was depicted also very measured, soft-spoken,
At
thoughtful, considerate,
Tender in points where it was appropriate.
but very competent.
Yeah.
Which are all things like, and we could get into how black men are immediately seen as aggressive beings just by default. So it was nice that his character was not depicted that way, and also just kind of, I think, in a way accurate, because black men are perceived as automatically aggressive. Even to this day, they have to overcompensate by being as calm as possible in
Yeah.
every interaction that they have with white people.
Yeah.
Who are
So-
primed to react poorly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Mal's character is written as very measured, and he is very interested in justice, but he knows he has to proceed in a certain way. So I think his character was, for the 1980s,
Pretty nuanced, very
Yeah.
dimensional. Yeah.
that being said, like you said, they also brutalized his family more than anyone else's. So, and there was only him, his dad, and his sister,
And then it was only
Depicted.
him and his sister.
and then only him and his sister as like the only black people in the West, and we know that actually there were lots of black and other marginalized people as cowboys.
Actually, that reminds
Yeah.
me. So we talked about that there are no natives in this movie.
Yeah.
At all.
there's also
There's barely any Hispanic people,
Yeah.
if any.
I can't remember.
the only thing I can
Maybe
think of is some of the
outlaws.
unnamed extras.
maybe
Yeah.
was the eye patch guy?
Maybe.
Maybe Hispanic?
But literally
But
because
Yeah.
of your
But
question,
we're guessing.
Yeah.
whether it's that in itself is indicative that
Yeah. And
there
it's more
wasn't
represent-
really any representation, meaning
I agree.
So
with that.
this movie
No.
super falls down in that way.
And like of the female characters, Stella and Ray were probably like the best developed, but they
Yeah.
were still very like only Stella maybe was the
The most
actually
fully
nuanced
fleshed
character.
out character, yeah.
At least it
Ray,
does.
Hannah, and Kate were like they were there.
Ray had motivations at least. Like,
I
Yeah,
did
it's
like
true.
Ray, but I wish
but
that
she wasn't fleshed out fully.
It's
yeah,
true.
I wish that she had more screen time, I guess, and more opportunity to be a even more dynamic character.
Yeah.
So, it's the 1980s.
It was a mixed bag. I
Yeah.
would say it probably did pretty well for its
Exactly.
time,
I
but
do
there are some
think-
pretty obvious faults in it.
There are
Yeah.
spots it could improve.
Yeah.
I think that it was, but still, it was enjoyable, even from like a 2024 perspective. It was not so, like, all
Galling,
these things
yeah.
were
Yeah,
it was
not
not
so bad that it
glaringly-
was like,
Felt icky to watch.
yeah.
All the way.
I personally like this movie better than Tombstone, mostly because.
Oh, wow.
So I will tell you this: I don't really like Tombstone.
Expand on that.
It mostly because it portrays the good guys as going around and like essentially genociding the entire like bad guy population.
Can you call that genocide?
Well, I can't.
We need to be very careful about how we throw that word around.
Yeah, I mean, like...
murdering.
No holds barred.
No holds barred, mass murdering, all of these, like, just supposed bad guy camps. And there's cuts of them just going crazy,
just cutting a bloody swath
down.
across the West.
And it's a couple of guys doing this, and like,
but it's okay when it's the good guys that do it.
It's okay now, when the good guys are doing it.
At the same time, I would say, because this is based on real events,
Tombstone
that if you went back in time and asked the people who were being brutalized by the bad guys if this was like, but they're just as bad as the bad guys. Mm-hmm. They might not actually give a fuck. Yeah. The people on the ground who actually lived it might not give a fuck.
Okay. So my reason for saying this is like you don't necessarily see what these gangs have really done.
Well, and Tombstone as a movie should have been better about expanding upon that.
Yes. Whereas with this one, you can see exactly what these bad guys are doing at every step of the way. And you realize, like, okay, these guys have been, like, doing this crap. They've been murdering these people.
Well, everything is sufficiently motivated.
Yeah, you can see how much of a hold McKendrick and Cobb together have on the town of Silverado and the surrounding farmland.
Yeah,
it's very well demonstrated.
You have a lot of, like...
Because it's showing all the different viewpoints of, like...
Yeah.
Them attacking the farmers already there, Malachi and his family, and the new incomers.
Yeah.
Yep.
Now, I will say, it is hard to top Kurt Russell's mustache.
Oh, yeah.
And Val Kilmer's fucking swagger in Tombstone.
Yes,
that is hard to top.
That is.
But I do take your point, like, that this movie did a better job of actually, like, helping you understand the dynamics.
I also feel like the friendship that is bonded and is made by these four fellows is stronger, and it makes more of a connection to like viewers because it feels a lot more real.
It's more emotionally resonant.
Just like
it's also not built on assumptions. I mean, part of the thing with Tombstone again is it is based on a true story, and I think that the writers and the director were kind of assuming that you knew enough about these characters to know that they were already friends. It doesn't have to do the work
of setting that up because they're these titanic historic figures.
Yeah.
I've never seen Tombstone.
We'll amend that.
But
it is a good watch.
I was going to say, like, just Silverado, like, it's just a fun watch. Like, the tone is lighthearted throughout. So, like, even though all these serious events are going on, they keep it light throughout. So.
Yeah.
It's a good movie. Would definitely say, if you haven't seen it or heard of it, that it is a fun Western. And
with the asterisks of the content warnings we have been through.
Yes.
But yes.
Yeah. I mean, and as, I guess, we as a culture begin revisiting Westerns, I mean, it's useful to point out how this did not get some things right, but it's also, I think, just generally a better done, more enjoyable Western than many other better-known Western movies.
Yeah, I would agree. And Westerns are kind of having a moment right now. Like, country music, Westerns, cowboys are in vogue right now. So give this a spin. See
Cowboys are in this year.
Truly.
Come for the cowboy shenanigans. Stay for the positive masculine friendships that are formed during this movie. It's really nice to see.
Well, yeah, it depicts multiple men with a high degree of emotional intelligence, and goddamn if that's not rare in movies.
Yeah.
We like us some soft boys.
It's true.
Yeah. Some soft but capable boys.
Yeah, it's like it's presenting different forms of masculinity.
I love that.
Yeah.
It's so refreshing.
Like a rapier. It's a foil, It's like you're all nice and strong, and you can also
the sword.
Yeah, not a raper. Enunciation.
I'm tired.
Yeah, let's go ahead.
Let's try to get through dessert.
Yeah, let's head into the dessert round. This has been in the stock pot for years for me, right? This is, again, one of those things that's just been with me through my childhood. I don't think I've thought a lot about it when it comes to applying this to my work, to my writing, I don't know that it has directly influenced it too much, but mostly because I haven't dabbled a lot in Westerns. The moment I fucking dabble in Westerns, I'm sure this is going to influence what I write.
Well, you have had your first dalliance into that with Goliad Gabby.
That's true.
Yep.
That's true. I think I was pulling from some other sources for that, especially because the protagonist is a female character. So Silverado doesn't have a lot of that going on, so you can't draw a lot from that.
This is true.
But she is a sharpshooter.
But she's a sharpshooter, and she is a horsewoman to a certain degree.
And she does have a very happy-go-lucky attitude.
She does.
She has a very bad, like, masculine fellow. Like
he is. I don't know. He's bad. He's just a sad boy. He is a misguided young man.
Kind of a shithead.
Yeah, but a lot of young men
are shitheads.
Yes.
You
from
can
time
you
to
can
time.
see it.
being
Yeah.
one at some point in my
That
life.
does not mean that they will always be shitheads.
The good ones age out of it.
Yeah. The good ones age out of it at the urging of the, matriarchs and good male models around them.
So if you're interested in, listening to a harrowing
Rootin'
tale,
tootin'
a rootin' tootin'
monster
monster
shootin'.
shootin',
We should link that in this episode
yeah,
description.
go check out Goliad Gabby.
Cross-promoting our other shows.
Yeah.
If you've ever looked at a Western and thought, needs more women, also needs more monsters, specifically cockatrices, boy, have I got the story for you.
There's also a motorcycle in it. It's
There is,
pretty rad.
It's got some interesting stuff going on.
Oh my gosh, guys. A Western, but like instead of on horses, it's like on motorcycles. And it's like in more modern eras.
That's just...
Do you mean Paul Bettany's Priest? It's a vampire motorcycle western.
That sounds amazing. But what
It's a shitty movie, but it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
was a Western that took place on scooters?
That sounds like an indie movie.
I know you mean like Vespa scooters, but my first thought was
Was it
razor
razor
scooters.
That's literally what mine was too.
Go, gang.
and it keeps getting tangled in your spurs.
Oh my God.
The rainbow wheels.
A coming of age story about like a gang of like girls in roller skates who it's like following a Western.
No. If you want the true
Like,
Western formula, one has to have classic roller skates, one has to have inline skates, one's a razor scooter, and the last one is
A
the classic
skateboarder.
Film writers, we are
the
gold
classic
mine.
bicycle with
You
the
can have
basket
this
and the
idea.
ribbons.
These are
Yeah.
for free.
That's a tricycle.
No, just regular bicycle, but with the front basket and the ribbons.
Oh my god.
The classic little girl bike.
What about the training wheels? Training wheels?
No, we've aged out of that. I'm
Okay.
imagining these are like 10-year-olds.
Coming of
Gotcha.
age Western, but it's girls with various modes of 90s transportation.
It's a bunch of
for
fifth grader
children.
girls.
They
Yes.
took our puppy.
Someone has moon shoes. It's fine.
Oh yeah.
Oh my
Okay,
god, the
Weaponized
weirdo
hula
on the
hoop.
block has moon shoes.
those were garbage though. They were not bought new because those things were expensive as fuck. But my parents got me a set of moon shoes from a thrift store. They were
Well, by
shit.
that point, the band's the elasticity is like, they're gonna break.
Oh, someone has a pogo stick.
Pogo stick.
Yeah.
Weaponized.
Wait, skip it.
Yeah. Oh,
Skip
man.
it.
Weaponized skip it.
Beat me to it. Weaponized skip it.
It's just like
Weaponized
walking
jump
without-
rope.
It's almost an impediment because you're trying not to kill yourself as you're.
Well,
walking.
if you're a good skipper,
Yeah,
and
you-
skip
One
it,
of those, like,
you can
balls
turn it
with
into
the-
a maze.
Yeah.
Yeah, the paddle ball.
Terrifying.
it's like little ankle.
We got
chain.
way off course
Yeah.
here, though.
Somebody has like a
I heard
sticky
Western
hand.
and motorcycle, and my mind was just like, yes.
Yeah.
Bisexual in me was like,
Yeah.
these two things need to happen.
I think it feels like there probably is that somewhere out there at this point, because like, how can people have not made that connection?
I mean, I haven't seen a lot of it, but you could probably make an argument for Sons of Anarchy
Bo, I
being
need
a
you to go
motorcycle
over there.
western.
Yeah.
That's actually
Yeah.
a good argument. I can't speak to that because I, again, haven't seen that.
Wait, wasn't there like
I-
a Netflix show where it was like high school cliques in the middle of the apocalypse?
Okay, let's reel it back to the topic.
Let's come back. Come back to
to-
center. Come on. Come
Okay.
over here. Yeah, but I think that as I move forward, because I am interested in the Western genre for various reasons, because I can't be fucking stopped. Mm-hmm. Except by myself and writer's block. But we won't get into that. Mm-hmm. But I do think that as I move forward in dipping my toe a little more in the Western genre, I probably will reference this, and specifically when dealing with like male characters and depicting male relationships in more than just like either an antagonistic or a
familial, romantic,
or the toxic male friendship kind of way. You know, that's not, it's actually like not really about like, there's no deeper connection. It's just that we hang in a posse or something.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to do that.
We're gonna fight for the good fight. Like, nah.
A John Wayne friendship.
Yeah.
Boo, John Wayne sucks.
Wait, expand upon that.
He was a fascist.
Oh, well, yeah. Fuck John Wayne then. Fuck John Wayne then.
No, if you want a good old-timey cowboy, you want Johnny Cash, because he was asked to do a concert. I forget which president it was, but he was asked to do a concert at the White House and do a bunch of, like, you know, patriotic songs. And instead he sang Folsom Prison Blues, which was explicitly a protest song. So good for him.
Wow, interestingly, your mic was turned the wrong way the whole time.
Oh, is that why your voice was peaking my microphone?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it was halfway pointed towards me.
That's
Wait,
fun.
the whole time?
No, probably just for this session.
Okay.
But anyway, it's fine. But yeah, no, Johnny Cash, great.
John Wayne fascist.
John Wayne fascist, yes.
Ooh, okay. You're gonna have to tell me more about that later.
Sure.
But, so, I don't know. I think I've also watched other Westerns and kind of found them lacking. Probably because I've had exposure to Silverado and, like, the, I don't know, camaraderie that is, like, a defining feature of it. But, yeah, that's probably my takeaway.
Well, I guess I'll go next. This is my first exposure to this movie, so it obviously has not had influence on anything that I've created to date, but I can definitely see a bunch of takeaways that I'll take from it. Jess has already, and we've all covered, like, positive masculine friendships. If you've listened to previous episodes, that's something I always harp on. Positive models of masculinity and how often they're lacking in our media. This is really good emotional intelligence. There's tenderness between the men and tenderness from the men towards the women. Like, there's not this huge misogyny going on either.
They respect women juice.
They truly do. So that's probably the first thing, but we've harped on that enough. The thing that I will take away as the plot guy is when I'm writing, often fall victim to, like, again, something that we talk about a lot, feeling like I just need to get to the next thing and worrying about, like, spending too long lingering in a moment.
Well, and I kind of think that's because the current creative and narrative climate is, like, all about hyper-efficiency, but
and immediately suck in your audience.
Yeah,
at
but
the expense
of actually
saying
depth
anything
of
worthful.
character and depth of connection.
that's true of the current moment. I've always struggled with that. Whenever I was doing, like, essays and short stories in school, I would always come in way under the page count because I'd be like, I've made my point, I'm moving on. But this movie is a great study in how to, like, let things linger on characters and, like, letting things take up space and allowing moments to unfold in their own time. Because, again, like, the full first hour of this 2-hour movie is just the setup. You're just getting to know these people. The plot doesn't really show up until minute 65 or so, and it was still a great watch. Like, it took all that time to set all these plot beats up, and then once
Knock
the final
'em down.
then once the final conflict comes around, it's just like bang 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 bang. There isn't any wasted setup except maybe the Prairie Woman, because she's set up and then it kind of is given an ambiguous ending of where that's going.
See,
But otherwise, everything they set up, they execute on, including small things like Augie doing trick writing lessons from Jake. Like,
Yep.
they make good use of the beats that they set up.
Yep. Agreed. My main takeaway as the vibe checker
And scene chewer.
and scene chew.
Oh yeah, we have to do the scales. Actually, maybe Claire should go first, then we can end on the scales.
Yep,
Maybe
let's
that's a
do
good
that.
way. And I was also going to say, Jamie, me and you were on opposite ends of the spectrum.
This is true,
I
yes.
once turned in a 20-page short story for an assignment that had to be 3 pages.
Oh my god!
Oh my
I
God.
did that in high school too.
Yeah.
I think I turned in it was write 7 or 5 or 7 pages, and I turned in 30.
Yeah, I still have
I was
it.
I think I still have mine too.
As someone who has
so bad.
as someone
Not
who
great.
as someone who has had a brief teaching career, please don't do that. You have to grade all of that.
I think I did for my
It was a
capstone,
pearl among. They were lucky to read
among
it.
swine. I also for my senior capstone project for my Russian degree, it was 10 pages in Russian or 20 pages in English, and I think I wrote 22 or 23 pages because I just can't stop myself.
These guys all, talking about how much they writ and stuff for their capstones. My capstone was a child's book.
It was cute as shit, too.
Was your capstone?
Yeah, it was.
What was your major?
Visual communication.
Oh.
Yeah,
Okay.
graphic design, visual communications.
Actually, really.
He designed a children's book.
I basically
cute as shit.
I walked in there and I said, this is what I'm going to do, and I'm going to try and market it too. And they're like, yeah, okay. I got an A.
Maybe you could give the book to me for my classes.
My capstone was boring as shit to anybody outside of my field. So,
Okay, yeah, so as a first-time viewer, I've I think, said all my reactions so far to this movie. It's a really fun watch. I appreciated all the attention to detail they paid. Like Jamie said, all of the payoff is there, it's earned. And also, I would like to take away Death by Horse, because
that was so good.
it was so cool. And it
Yeah.
was it's just not something you often see, even though a lot of people actually get trampled by horses.
Yeah.
So,
Horses are actually incredibly, if you don't know what you're doing with them, they can be very dangerous and deadly.
And this movie really utilized the fact that in a lot of the Wild West, people were working with big, heavy, dangerous animals, because also the stampede killed a few of the men also.
Yeah, the physicality of the animals is on full display.
Yeah, so it's actually, it's kind of cool, because that fact is just kind of glossed over in some
It
Westerns.
really is. That's a great point. I'm just thinking, I challenge you to a duel. Horses at dawn.
Well, I was also thinking about characters and stuff. I think Emmett and Jake were kind of underdeveloped.
Yeah, they were a little flat. They were mostly there to move things along.
I loved Mal, and I also I loved Peyton. Peyton is the character that has
It's
sort of the
arguably,
most.
he's the point of view character.
Or the main character. Yeah.
If there is a protagonist to this, Peyton probably goes through the biggest arc.
Yeah,
Because he
yeah.
literally
Biggest
starts with
change.
nothing.
He starts with nothing.
Centers a little bit around him.
He
Yeah.
gains
Final confrontation with Cobb.
Yeah.
Yeah, he loses everything, then he gains it all back, and then he finds a purpose
Yeah.
in life on the right side of the law.
Mm-hmm.
And he finds reasons to stand up for the right things, because up until this point seems like he fell in with a gang, but actually was
He was just kind of aimless.
avoidant
Yeah.
in many ways.
You almost feel like, for a second, Slick is actually going to be the person instead of Peyton. Because
to stand up into the
Yeah.
role that he's going to do.
yeah, because you kind of see it because they're very similar kind of
They are.
veins.
I think Slick is sort of a foil to Peyton a little bit.
And that would have been more interesting if they had really played up that foil between them as sort of Slick is the person who is the gambler, who is living the gambling life, and Peyton is sort of an avoidant gambler.
Yeah, he's
he
half-assing
believes
it.
in luck.
But he doesn't believe in pressing his luck.
Yeah, but he doesn't believe in. Yeah, he's very conservative about how he presses it.
And how
Yeah,
his luck comes to him.
yeah.
But yeah, I guess I've also gained an appreciation from this movie for Kevin Kline and a beard.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he were a honey though.
I'm pretty sure this is the hottest he's ever
And
looked.
also, I thought they did great characterizing Peyton with the motif of the dog throughout the
Yeah,
story.
Yeah.
yeah.
And where's your dog? You know, talking about what lost cause, not necessarily an actual
Well,
dog.
there's our dog.
So-
Yeah, and not to mention with Peyton, like it literally is a rags to riches story
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
He starts out in nothing but his underwear and becomes sheriff.
Started at the
Yep.
bottom, now we here.
Well, my main takeaway is, why did all the saloons look very similar?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they're all filmed in the same place.
I mean,
but
also, yeah, because
generic Western town number 3.
Yeah.
you also do have to think about the constraints of like
Filmmaking,
budgets and
yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
So they can move the furniture around and
Yeah.
like how. But I also don't know. I think like 2 of them looked similar, but like the last one.
I think the last one was distinct.
The last
but-
one was distinct just because you had Stella who had to walk on her little ramp.
Well,
her
and
little
it also had the
Design.
the backsplash with like
Oh,
the Midnight Star.
The
thing.
Midnight Star
Oh, yeah,
I would
carving.
like to talk more about Peyton and Stella's relationship. Again,
Please do,
Because
yeah.
it's so uniquely presented. And Peyton even calls her at one point in the film. He's like, "You're my midnight star. What would I do without you?"
yeah,
And I'm like,
it's
this
really
could
sweet.
almost be like construed romantically, which is very interesting because Stella would not be the typical
Love
romantic.
interest.
Well, yeah,
love interest,
like-
but I did really just appreciate how much chemistry Peyton and Stella had, whether it's interpreted romantically or not. It's just not a typical relationship.
And actually, I think it's more powerful that they didn't define it.
yeah, I
and
kind of
I-
like that it's
You could-
I
open
like
to
the
interpretation.
idea, that lo and behold, you can have a meaningful relationship with a person of the opposite sex that's not
romantic.
romantic, not sexual, not familial. It can just be a very deep friendship.
I mean, you could also like argue that it could be like, you know, a brother-sister relationship too. Like,
But they're not
It's-
actual brother and sister.
Yeah, yeah,
But,
yeah.
like,
I think that's important.
like a familial, like
It
sibling.
doesn't feel familial
Yeah.
either.
You don't
Yeah,
think so? Okay.
it feels a little too flirty, like the way that you can be flirty with friends
Yeah.
sometimes.
Yeah.
Cousin.
But yeah, so I did really appreciate that depiction of their relationship too, and I think that is one of the things that made the movie stronger.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That relationship just sparkles. I loved watching them.
Yeah, I think
It's cute.
when I think about that movie through the lens of like my childhood memories, that's actually the part that I remember the best. Is like their Peyton and like Peyton's relationship with Stella. There was something just really captivating and interesting and magnetic about that plot point. to
Well, yeah,
me.
just like give me a Baddie of the Week mini-series centered on this town with those two as the main characters.
Yeah,
Like,
I would watch that.
That'd be fun.
that would be immensely watchable.
Yep.
Yeah.
So vibes. Yeah. So I got a little bit lost because apparently we'd gone through 3-4 towns and
At
like,
least 3.
and it really didn't feel like it. It just felt like the same exact town.
Yeah,
going
I
through.
kind of felt like they were just circling in and out of the same like one lane town over
Yep.
and over again. I get that.
But
see.
probably a lot of towns would have looked like that.
Yeah, I know.
Like,
But I
know.
get that, yeah.
Let's see. What was like my aha scene moment? I'm trying to think. Maybe.
Well, the fire.
Yeah.
but you also were talking about your Western film class that you took.
Yeah. Like,
Talking.
I mean, I talked a little bit about it where just watching a whole bunch of different films of, you know, Westerns and just kind of sitting back and just realizing how distinctive and different they all can be, even though, like, it might be a very similar story. How is that story told? Who are these characters involved? And, like, why should we care?
Yeah, how do you spice up a formulaic genre?
It can be very, very samey almost, and almost a little bit on the boring side depending on what the movie is.
It's true.
And for me, this movie, it broke that mold. And I'm like, yes, I can see this again. I can watch this again to get some of the more nuances because, like we said, there are quite a few.
rewatchable.
It's rewatchable. There's like hints and clues about how this can be reused and like, you know, clever shoots and stuff like that.
You know what my favorite bit of cinematography was?
But
And it's just because it's so on the nose. When Peyton and Cobb are having their final confrontation, there's a shot counter shot of Peyton with the white steepled church behind him. I am the good guy. And then we flip and Cobb just has the barren high desert behind him.
I didn't even notice that.
Yeah.
He has the city, or he has the town behind him at that point.
Peyton does, yeah. Like,
Peyton, yeah.
I have the authority of the town and God on my
Well,
side.
I have
Like-
the power of God and anime.
Literally, like that's kind of what it felt like, because it was a little corny, but I loved it.
Well, it's also really fun, like watching Peyton's character develop throughout the entire
Yes,
series. Like
it's very
Claire
compelling.
mentioned it, like, you know, rags to riches and stuff. The idea that you have this guy who was kind of on the
On the outs,
actually becoming a sheriff and learning, you know, what it takes to be
Being invested in the
the good
community.
guy and
Yeah.
be invested in the community, as opposed to Cobb, who's just being invested in himself.
Yep.
yeah.
Yep. And they also drove that asshole rancher into his grave and out of town.
Yeah.
Out of town and into his grave.
Yep.
Yeah, the ranchers were decidedly the bad guys. In this.
Yes.
Yeah.
The cops and the capitalists were the bad guys in this one, guys.
Yeah.
Totally unrelatable.
But also completely ignoring the
The native
colonial-
presence and
Yeah.
the colonial
Yeah.
narrative
Yeah.
and that.
Okay, so
Meters.
Let's go to the meters. on that note.
Hammometer. If you don't know, the hammometer is what we use to determine how stupid, ridiculous, and overly hammy a movie is. Your scale is from 1 being like a Schindler's List, a very serious, somber piece, to a 10, which is Army of Darkness. If you're curious about why it's 10, you should check it out. Anyway, I would say that this movie would be a 6. It would be a little above your average, mostly because of the shenanigans of Jake.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Well, I would also... So, there's also the chizometer.
Yes. How cheesy is this?
I feel like, weirdly, like, this is kind of a cheesy movie, though,
It is.
right? Like...
This,
It's
It has a happy
it-
ending.
I would hope that it would be cheesier than, or it would be more cheesier than hammy.
Yeah, I was about to say, in a reversal of what it normally is, I do think that this is higher on the chizometer.
I
the
think I would
cheesometer.
rate it a little lower on the ham, but higher on the cheese.
Yeah, I was going to say maybe a 7.5 or an 8 on
Yeah,
the
I would.
That
like,
high?
cheese. And I don't... It's like, again...
Because
I'm
I
literally
think high
going-
cheese is like a Hallmark movie.
Yeah. But, so I'm thinking overall feeling, right? And at
Yes.
the end of it, you're uplifted and you're like, wow,
It's very schmaltzy,
cute.
but
Yeah,
like
very
you
fun.
feel good about
But
that.
at
yeah,
the same
it's-
time, you get points taken away for, like, you know, Mal's family being fucking
Yeah.
That's why I would rate it a little lower, because there were some
Yeah.
serious...
There were some
Parts.
serious things, but those
But
serious
the
things...
overall tone
Yeah.
was kept light.
Yeah.
Yep.
It was, like, overall a feel-good sort of, you know, there's a happy ending all around. We love to see it. Power of friendship. That kind of stuff. So, you know, it's cheesy, but, like, really good cheese.
Yeah, it's like a
Real
nice
cheese.
Gouda or a Munster.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, I think a beefometer
Oh, yeah.
is
Yeah.
probably next. Gosh, I would say, 7.5, because
Kevin Kline,
Peyton and
Jeff
Mal,
Hardy, and
Peyton
Danny
and Mal,
Glover.
they look. Well, and
And
Jeff
Jeff
Goldblum.
Goldblum.
Actually, with Jeff Goldblum and his hair, let's say an 8. There's plenty of eye candy to be had.
Wait,
Yeah.
what's the beefometer? You can explain this one.
The hunkometer.
Yeah,
Okay.
the amount of honeys in the movie. Now,
Also, Jake was like,
well, and
young
actually-
kind,
actually-
but very athletic.
actually, Ray also contributes
Ray
to that
was such a
because
honey.
she's so pretty.
So beautiful. Yeah.
She's so pretty.
Yeah.
So yeah, 8. There's a lot of really pretty people to look at in this
Yeah.
movie. Yes.
And unfortunately, Chicky was not with us to watch this movie, so
But it ranks pretty low on the sauce-o-meter. It's a very chaste movie.
yeah.
The most we get is
Yeah.
kissing and implied hay rolling.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
So-
a little saucy.
It's like a 3.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Wait, who can really say without the mistress of sauce here to really weigh in?
I would say it's like PG-13 violence, PG romance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That sounds like a
Yeah.
3 to me.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
like a 3, yeah.
So,
That's a Bonnie pillow.
You drew attention to it, now you ruined
Oh
it.
no, did not perceive me.
Alright, we're almost there, guys.
we're almost there. Have we determined what, if any, meter you have, Claire?
No.
We could do
That's
like
okay,
the
that's
buns
okay.
a meter. Who's got good
I'll
cake?
probably remain as a guest role. I like a guest
having,
role.
yeah.
Actually, I might rename the beef-o-meter
don't
to the
want to
bun-o-meter,
commit to-
because that's more gender neutral.
Well, but we have beef
Yeah, we have to have some sort of meat in
in
there.
the
Ham! Ham, cheese, bun.
But it's stupid when you have 7 fucking buns on your burger.
It's just a really thick bun.
No.
Really thick buns.
No.
Thick
No, we're
buns.
staying with beef
I like the
meter.
beef-o-meter because beef can also be like, I don't know, whatever.
You know what? Well, I mean, why can't women be hunks?
That's true.
Come on.
Gender neutral hunks.
Yeah, when
Some-
we say
some of my-
beef, we mean gender
Let
neutral
me read the
beef.
buns in this film.
I mean-
There's some man
I'm pretty
buns,
hunky,
I think.
Yeah, I mean, some of my favorite women are hunky, it's true.
No,
Yeah, I mean,
There's no veggies on
let's
this
just say
here.
I didn't
No.
notice any buns. I think maybe I noticed like one bun
Yeah.
in this movie, so I don't know that it was very.
I mean, we got a lot of
bun
butt shots.
heavy.
We got a lot of, I would say, comedy butt shots of Peyton in his awkward underwear.
Well, there was
Yeah.
also wasn't this or was it Quigley was the one with the crotch shots?
Quigley was the one
And
with
Quigley-
the bun and
Quigley
crotch shots.
has a lot of buns in there.
Quigley's
let
a
me just
slut.
say. But
Quigley is a slut.
we are going to talk about
Yeah,
Quigley down
We-
under next.
Oh,
Tom
Oh,
Selleck.
Tom Selleck. All of us were like, oh, God.
Okay, not all of us. I wasn't.
Oh, yeah.
Because Tom Selleck looks like my dad.
We might have to hijack the beef-o-meter.
Yeah, somebody else needs to beef-o-meter that, because I cannot ethically
Well,
do it.
I think that.
Crazy cool.
Ethically raised
Yeah,
beef.
yeah.
Oh my god.
Well, and
Especially after she gets a new dress.
It's true, yeah, crazy Cora.
it was weird for me watching Quigley this time
Wait,
around
wait,
because
wait.
he.
We can talk
I know,
about that
I
next
know.
time.
It was weird for me watching. I'm gonna say this though, Quigley. This time around though, because he does kind of remind me of your dad. But before he reminded me of your dad, I would say the beef-o-meter is going to be at 10, baby.
I mean,
because
I will-
Tom Selleck, Crazy Cora. Oh my god.
Beef-o-meter is sizzling.
It's sizzling hot.
I will take that as a compliment by proxy, because I'm basically a clone of my
Yeah,
dad.
just slightly more blonde.
Yeah, so I'll take that.
Yeah. So you're gonna dress up in some cowboy.
I
and some
just bought
hats
cowboy
and
boots.
some- and a hat
Yes.
and a big gun.
Do we all have cowboy boots in this house?
I don't anymore. I
I
need to
do.
get some. So
We do
What
live
am
in
I doing?
Oklahoma for context.
Seriously, what's up, guys?
what's going on? What's going on is we are cleaning up the
We're
dishes.
past 25.
We are cleaning up the dishes. It is almost 3 hours fucking long.
Oh my God. Is this
Don't
the
worry about the
longest
dishes,
one?
y'all. We will grab them. We will put them in the sink. Y'all get out of here while you can. Go ahead. Maybe check us out at Media Morsels. You'll be able to see what we are watching next, and see our horrible little Nemo.
He's
Go
so
ahead and
cute.
check him out.
He's staring at us right now.
And
Is he in the
He's
room with
horrifying.
us? Is he here right
and we
now?
will see you guys hopefully next week, and we'll save you a seat.
Yeehaw.